Chapter 2023 I need to earn money. Through challenging the inner disciples and core disciples, he had earned quite a number of Sword Pavilion coins back in the Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion. However, as he thought that he did not have much use for them, he had spent most of his wealth on immortal pills for Dan Xiaotian and Bai Ruanqing. As such, while he was not exactly poor, the amount of money he had left was definitely insufficient for him to strike a deal with the 7-star Pavilion. However, since it was guaranteed that he would be able to purchase a ride on the immortal beast as long he had enough money, everything else would be simple to deal with. He would just have to find a way to earn some money. With such thoughts in mind, he looked at the elder and asked, "How much will it cost?" "It's the personal mount of the head of the 7-star Pavilion, and considering the location is the faraway Sea of Exiled Stars, it'll cost at least 20,000 ethereal coins," the elder replied after a swift calculation. 20,000 ethereal coins? Zhong Xian frowned. Even the true Immortal Realm ethereal token only cost 7 ethereal coins. With 20,000 ethereal coins, one would be able to buy even a high immortal tier weapon. It was indeed very pricey. Yes. The elder nodded. "Well, I'll be frank with you. I'll be taking half of the sum as commission. However, you should know that without my introduction, even with 20,000 ethereal coins, you might not be able to strike a deal with the 7-star Pavilion on your own." Hearing those words, Zhong Xian nodded in agreement. He was an outsider, and he did not know anyone in the 7-star Pavilion. Without the elder, putting aside striking a deal with them, he would not even be aware of this piece of information. "I understand. I'll go and prepare the money now." Zhong Xian nodded as he turned around and walked back into the private chamber in the ethereal hall. Safety came first. As long as he could avoid getting found by the Hall of Gods, spending that bit of money was nothing at all. As for how he would earn his money, wherever there was an ethereal hall, there would be public duels as well. Considering how he was invincible in his cultivation realm, it was a piece of cake for him to earn his money. As long as he did not reveal his god's sword intent, the Hall of Gods should not be able to find him. He quickly set up a few isolation formations within the silent chamber before immersing his consciousness into the ethereal token. The layout of the virtual ethereal hall was similar to the one in the real world. He quickly made his way over to the dueling ring. As one of the largest cities on the Forsaken Continent, the Buyuan city was filled with experts. While true Immortal Realm cultivators were already considered to be in the top echelon in smaller cities like Wuhai City, over here, there were so many of them that it was hard to believe that they were a rarity in other parts of the continent. As such, the dueling rings were filled to the brim. After registering at the receptionist, Zhong Xian waited roughly 10 minutes before being ushered toward the dueling ring. The receptionist turned to the elder and asked curiously, "Elder, is the 7-star Pavilion really sending people to the Sea of Exiled Stars?" The Starchaser Palace was known to have bad relations with the other 5 sects, so why would the 7-star Pavilion send its men over? "It's confidential news, so make sure not to spread it around. It's said that the sect leader is heading over there to discuss something important," the elder replied. He was the person in charge of managing the Buyuan city's ethereal hall, and his cultivation had long reached the heavenly high immortal realm, making him a highly esteemed figure there. However, he was still not privy to the matters happening within the 7-star Pavilion. Oh. Hearing that it was confidential, the receptionist did not dare probe any deeper into it. With a chuckle, she changed the topic and said, "I wonder if that fellow will be able to raise 20,000 ethereal coins in time." The elder scoffed. "Other than high immortals, it's impossible for anyone to fork out such a huge sum." Then, the receptionist blinked, surprised by the elder's reaction. "I'm just letting him know that he should know his place and back off. It would only take a month riding on a normal aerial immortal beast, and it would only cost 200 ethereal coins. On the other hand, going with the 7-star Pavilion will cost him 20,000 ethereal coins. There's no one who would pay 100 times the price just to save 20 days of travel." The elder shook his head. Those at their cultivation realm could easily spend months in seclusion for their cultivation. Only a madman would spend so much money just to save 20 days. "Well, that's true." The receptionist nodded in agreement. Thinking about it, based on his tone, it doesn't seem like he has the money, so he's intending to head off to earn a bit of money first. The elder harumphed in response. The fastest way to earn money in the ethereal hall is through the dueling ring. However, even with the stakes multiplying with each victory, he will have to win many rounds consecutively. Even the core disciples from the 7-star pavilion who frequent our dueling rings find it hard to win 4 rounds consecutively, let alone here. As the 7-star pavilion was located in proximity to Bun City's ethereal hall, the disciples of the 7-star pavilion often frequented the place. The registration price is 5 ethereal coins. Even if he manages to win 5 rounds back-to-back, that would only be 80 ethereal coins. He's still a long way off from reaching his goal of 20,000 ethereal coins, the receptionist replied with a chuckle. The initial cost for joining the dueling ring was set to not be too high, just 5 ethereal coins. This was to attract more people to participate in the duels. If one won a round, the stakes would immediately double. The next challenger would have to pay a corresponding price in order to join the battle. The elder nodded with a smile. All right, I'll be heading back to rest now. Call me if anything else happens. Following which, he turned around and returned to his room. However, barely after he took a few steps, another receptionist rushed over anxiously and shouted, "Elder, what's wrong?" The elder frowned. Just earlier, someone has won 10 consecutively rounds in the dueling ring, the receptionist exclaimed. 10 rounds? The elder was taken aback. It's been a long time since anyone has been so successful in the dueling ring. Is he a core disciple from the 7-star pavilion? In Bun City, those who could possibly win 10 rounds consecutively were, more often than not, core disciples of the 7-star pavilion. These experts would make an appearance from time to time, but they would rarely participate in the duel. After all, it would be simply too unfair for the other cultivators. It would be like a professional fighter going on stage to challenge amateurs. It would not reflect well on them even if they did win. According to Zhao Meng, he isn't a core disciple from the 7-star pavilion, the receptionist replied. Zhao Meng was one of the core disciples of the 7-star pavilions, and his ranking was rather high. I see. The elder was stunned for a moment before quickly rushing back to his room. I have to head over to take a look. He took out his ethereal token and immersed his consciousness into it. Before long, he was standing within the virtual ethereal hall. With a few steps, he made his way over to the dueling ring. Atop the dueling ring, there were 2 figures fighting one another barehanded. The grey-robed fighter on the left was launching a series of powerful palm strikes. In response, the fighter on the right swiftly treaded around the battlefield nimbly, dodging the attacks. Isn't that grey-robed fighter over there the top ranker of the 7-star pavilion's core disciples, Meng Han? I never thought that he would come here personally. Well, the other fighter up there has already won 12 rounds consecutively with ease, and 3 of his opponents were fellow core disciples from the 7-star pavilion. As the top ranker of the core disciples, he probably feels obliged to make a move to protect the reputation of the 7-star pavilion. Barely after arriving at the dueling ring, the elder could already hear such discussions all around. This is already the 13th round. The elder was stunned. He vividly recalled the receptionist reporting to him earlier that someone had won 10 rounds consecutively. When did it turn into winning 12 rounds consecutively? He must have won 2 more rounds while I was looking for you. Beside him, the receptionist from earlier had a look of disbelief on her face. But that doesn't seem right either. It hasn't even been a single minute since I left the ethereal hall to look for you. The elder's lips twitched. This fellow actually defeated 2 more opponents on the dueling ring within a single minute. Look. While the elder was trying to rationalize how such a thing could have been possible, the fighter who had been dodging the palm strikes all along suddenly executed a punch. Peng. The top ranker of the 7-star pavilion's core disciples, Meng Han, collapsed to the ground as his body convulsed uncontrollably. Taking a closer look, his head was dented inward. Even Meng Han has been defeated so easily. The elder was taken aback. Meng Han had been at the top of the ethereal hall's dueling ring ranking for at least 3 years, but who would have thought that even he would fall to a single punch? This was too anticlimactic. Not only was the elder shocked by what he was seeing, the rest of the crowd was stunned as well. For such a powerful person to be defeated within a single move, it was hard to believe that this was really happening. In the Elder Council of the 7-Star Pavilion. Peng 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 peng. Two middle-aged men were exchanging blows with one another. Shockwaves rippled from their clashes, causing the inscriptions on the surrounding formations to glow from time to time as they neutralized the incoming force. The two of them appeared to be in their 40s or 50s, but their cultivation had already reached heavenly high immortal. Every move that they made seemed to sway the forces of nature. Eventually, the green-robed elder managed to get close enough to launch a direct jab toward the grey-robed elder's neck, stopping just the distance of a single finger away. I have lost. The grey-robed elder surrendered. It was a good fight, the green-robed elder replied cheerily before turning to the crowd. Is there anyone else who wishes to have a match with me? Silence. An elder stepped forth and announced, since that's the case, I hereby declare that Elder Hong Wu has won the tournament. I'll be bringing him with me to the Sea of Exiled Stars. This elder was the head of the 7-Star Pavilion, Kuei Xiao. Yes, Pavilion Master Kuei. The crowd clasped their fists. 2 hours ago, Kuei Xiao had ordered for all elders whose cultivation had reached the heavenly high immortal realm and were beneath 100 years of age to gather together in this hall. He had made all of them fight one another in a round-robin tournament, and eventually, it was this Elder Hong Wu who had emerged victorious. As such, there was no one who had any issues with Kuei Xiao's verdict. There are some things that I would like to tell Elder Hong Wu privately. The rest of you are dismissed for now, Pavilion Master Kuei said with a wave of his hand. The crowd nodded before leaving the hall. But before they could walk out, an elder suddenly rushed over and reported, Pavilion Master Kuei, something has happened. Oh! Pavilion Master Kuei frowned. The elder who had just walked into the hall was the first elder of the 7-Star Pavilion. Even though the other party's cultivation was beneath his, the other party was still one of the strongest heavenly high immortal realm cultivators on the Forsaken Continent. Given his strength, there were very few things in the world that could faze him. Yet, for the other party to rush over so anxiously, it had to be something of vital importance. An expert has appeared in Buyuan City's ethereal hall. This expert has challenged many opponents consecutively, but there's no one who is able to stand against him. So far, he has already won 13 rounds. Our core disciple, Meng Han, challenged him as well, but even he was defeated with a single punch, the first elder reported through Zhenqi telepathy. Even Meng Han wasn't a match for that person? Pavilion Master Kuei was clearly a little surprised. Meng Han was not just the top ranker of the 7-Star Pavilion, he was also his direct disciple. It was very likely that Meng Han would eventually rise to the position of the first elder or even succeed his position. Given Meng Han's strength, he should have been invincible existence when facing others at the true immortal realm, but he had ended up getting defeated within a single punch. Was this for real? Unable to remain calm before a bizarre situation like this, Kuei Xiao said with a wave of his hand, let's head over to take a look. Yes. The first elder quickly brought out the ethereal tokens that he had prepared beforehand. Taking one of the ethereal tokens, Kuei Xiao was just about to enter the ethereal hall when he suddenly recalled something. He turned to Elder Hong Wu and said, you should come along with us, too. As he spoke, he threw an ethereal token over. Yes, Pavilion Master Kuei. Elder Hong Wu replied as he caught the ethereal token. Considering how this expert was able to defeat even Meng Han with ease, he was curious just how powerful the other party was. What's the name of the person who defeated Meng Han? Pavilion Master Kuei asked as he dripped a blood droplet on the ethereal token to activate it. His name seems to be. The first elder paused for a moment to ponder for a moment before replying. Liu Yang. Chapter 2024 Dragon Transformation Palm Liu Yang? Kuei Xiao frowned. This name, he had never heard of it before. Let's head in to take a look. Knowing that it was much more effective for them to head in to take a look instead of asking all sorts of questions outside, Kuei Xiao quickly immersed his consciousness into the ethereal token. Over at the dueling ring, he swiftly caught sight of a young man scanning through the crowd intently. Is there anyone else who would have to have a battle with me? There was no response. The other party had won 14 rounds so far, defeating even the number 1 core disciple of the 7-star pavilion. Knowing the strength that the other party wielded, there was no way they would be so naive as to think that they would stand a chance against a monster of that caliber. Thus, no one was willing to step onto the stage. "Allow me to give it a try," Elder Hong Wu declared. It was just a moment ago that he had challenged all the elders and defeated them. He was still overflowing with fighting will. "Be careful," Kue Xiao advised. The registration was swiftly completed, and before long, Elder Hong Wu was already assessing the opponent before him on the dueling ring. The other party seemed to be in his 20s, but that being said, it was extremely easy to disguise one's appearance in the ethereal hall. As such, it was futile to attempt to assess another person through his appearance in the ethereal hall. However, most youngsters were reluctant to disguise themselves as elderly, and elderly disliked the notion of passing themselves off as youngsters. Furthermore, through the other party's mannerisms, Elder Hong Wu could gauge that the person standing before him was unlikely to be too old, perhaps 50 at most. Elder Hong Wu sent a Zhenqi telepathic message. "I am Hong Wu from the 7-star pavilion. Is there any chance that we might be acquainted with one another?" "Hong Wu." The young man on the other side shook his head. "I don't think that I know you." Hearing those words, Elder Hong Wu's eyebrows shot up a little. Even though he was not as famous as the semi-divinity realm pavilion master Kue Xiao, he was still a highly renowned figure within the 7-star pavilion. There was hardly anyone in Buyuan City who did not know of him. Yet, this person did not seem to recognize him at all. Was he not a local of Buyuan City? The young man seemed to have figured out something from Elder Hong Wu's slight facial movements, and after a slight moment of hesitation, he said, "As long as you are willing to fork out 2,560 ethereal coins after your loss, I don't mind saying that I know you if it's important to you." Beyond the 10th round, the ethereal coins on stake would not double anymore, or else it could reach ridiculous amounts that no one would be able to afford. In other words, all the matches beyond the 10th round had only brought Zhongxian 2,560 ethereal coins each. Having won 14 rounds consecutively so far, he had a total of 15,353 ethereal coins. He was not too far away from his goal of 20,000 ethereal coins. Those words made Elder Hong Wu's face collapse. He quickly shook his head and said, "Make your move. A person like you who doesn't know how to talk must not have any friends at all. If you know me, so be it. If you don't know me, so be it too. Why do you have to make it sound like I'm begging you to notice me? More importantly, why are you speaking as though my loss is already guaranteed? You might be the one losing 2,560 ethereal coins, just so you know." Elder Hong Wu could not be bothered to waste his breath anymore. His silhouette blurred as he charged forward at an incredible speed. Raising his palm, he leaped up and thrust a palm strike toward Zhongxian from above. Flowerless palm. The zhenqi gathered within the palm strike swiftly crept toward the young man like strands of vines. Even though his cultivation had been lowered to the true immortal realm, he was still able to bring out the true strength behind his flowerless palm. Countless vines shot forth and entangled themselves around the target. There was no incredible might nor decisive momentum, but the palm strike seemed to wrap around its target like a specter, binding him. It was through this move that he had been able to emerge victorious over the many elders previously. Not too bad. Zhongxian nodded. The skills of the opponent whom he was facing at the moment could be said to be the strongest of the 14 matches that he had fought so far. The same as before, he retaliated with a single palm strike. Against an opponent of the same cultivation realm, he would not even need to rely on his library of Heaven's Path in order to defeat the other party. Voila! It was as if his palm strike carried blazing flames, burning all the vines. This anomaly caused Elder Hong Wu to narrow his eyes in shock. The next instant, he felt some kind of peculiar energy bogging down his body, leaving him unable to move at all. Pada! The palm strike struck his head squarely, and his lifeless corpse collapsed to the ground. After knocking out his opponent, Zhongxian found that his fortune had indeed grown by another 2,560 ethereal coins, causing him to heave a sigh of relief. He turned his attention to the crowd once more and said, "All right, who else wants to have a battle with me?" He had already gathered 17,915 ethereal coins so far. He just needed to defeat one more opponent in order to raise 20,000 ethereal coins. Even Hong Wu ended up losing so quickly. Beneath the dueling ring, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao took a sharp breath. Elder Hong Wu had just fought all the elders in the 7-star pavilion, and he had not even faced a single defeat. Yet, when faced with this fellow, he was defeated within a single punch. Just who in the world is this person? Pavilion Master Kue Xiao frowned. He's probably not from our 7-star pavilion. Otherwise, we should have long heard of him. The fact that the other party was able to enter the true immortal realm ethereal hall showed that his cultivation had reached the true immortal realm. If put in the 7-star pavilion, the other party would be a core disciple at the very least. Given how the other party was able to defeat the top ranker Meng Han and Elder Hong Wu so easily, the 7-star pavilion would definitely have noticed him a long time ago if he was a core disciple of the sect. There was no way that he could have remained unnoticed. Liu Yang. Kue Xiao pondered for a long time, but no similar name came to his mind. Seeing that no one was stepping forward to accept Liu Yang's challenge, the first elder hesitated for a moment before leaping into the ring. I'll try facing him. Even though his cultivation was at the heavenly high immortal realm, in terms of prowess, he was far stronger than Elder Hong Wu. It was only because his age had exceeded 100 years old that he was unable to challenge the Azure Bridge. Nevertheless, seeing how this Liu Yang was able to defeat Elder Hong Wu so easily, he could not help but wonder how he would fare against the young man. In the ring, Zhong Xian's heart had been leaping in trepidation when no one was stepping forward after some time, so he was particularly relieved when he saw Elder Hong Wu stepping forward. With a deep sigh of relief on the inside, he beckoned with his hand and said, "Let's begin." He was determined to get this over and done with as quickly as possible so that his opponent would not have a chance to back out. Otherwise, he just might fail to raise enough ethereal coins. As for why he had gone with the name Liu Yang, well, he had no choice. His usual choice of names such as I am low profile and I am very handsome one were simply too indicative of his true identity. Thinking back, since he had blurted out Zhengyang back at the Myriad Beasts Hall, instead of burning his brain cells trying to come up with a refreshing, creative name, he might as well just use another of his direct disciples' names. As long as he did not choose Zhao Ya or Wei Ruyan, it should be fine. This was so much less stressful. Let's begin then. The first elder of the 7-star pavilion nodded. From the very start, he launched a powerful frontal strike. In an instant, dozens of palm after images appeared in the air. They were connected to form something reminiscent of a chain. Dragon transformation palm. It was said that upon reaching major accomplishment, the practitioner would be able to warp their palm into a divine dragon and bring devastating damage upon their enemies. Formidable. I never thought that he would have trained the technique to such a level within the past few years. He's already close to reaching major accomplishment. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao nodded. Ever since he achieved a breakthrough from the semi-divinity realm, he had rarely fought with high immortal realm experts like the First Elder. As such, he had no idea what kind of level the other party had reached. Thus, when he saw this move, he could not help but nod in approval. The Dragon Transformation Palm was one of the most difficult battle techniques to cultivate in the 7-star pavilion, but he was still able to achieve such a high level of mastery in it. To be honest, not even Pavilion Master Kue Xiao had absolute confidence in achieving victory. It's just a pity that he's beyond 100 years old. Otherwise, Elder Hong Wu would surely be unable to defeat him. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao shook his head in lamentation. It was impossible to reach the semi-divinity realm just through normal cultivation. It did not matter no matter how talented one was. The only way was to enter the Azure Bridge and venture into the Hall of Gods. The main reason that he was at his current realm was because he had been able to enter the Azure Bridge 100 years earlier. There was no doubt that Elder Hong Wu was not too bad either, such that there was no one currently in the 7-star pavilion who could match him. However, the other party was still a little lacking compared to him back then. Of the 6 sects, only the Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion is in a slighter better position, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao remarked. The greatest goal of those from the 6 sects was to enter the Hall of Gods and snatch the God character. Snatching the one God character was not just an act of vanity that brought pride and honor to one's sect. More importantly, this God character was also the key to reaching semi-divinity. Sects without it could only rely on the centennial descent of the Azure Bridge to push for a breakthrough. If not for the Azure Bridge, even if a sect was filled with monstrous geniuses, none of them would ever have the chance to peer into the semi-divinity realm. The founder of the Ascendant Cloudsword Pavilion had once snatched half a God character from the Hall of Gods, and it was for this reason that their Ascendant Cloudsword God formula, when trained to the limits, could allow one to surpass the limits of a high immortal and become a semi-divinity realm cultivator. The chances were slim, but nevertheless, it still represented a ray of hope. On the other hand, the Seven-Star Pavilion and other sects did not enjoy such privilege at all. As for the Ethereal Hall, it was known that it had managed to snatch an entire God character, but the entire organization remained veiled in mystery. There was no one who knew where its headquarters were and how many experts it had. But one thing was for sure. The leader of the Ethereal Hall who had snatched an entire God, one character back then, Hall Master Kong, definitely had the ability to raise semi-divinity realm experts and even beyond that. These thoughts swiftly flitted through Pavilion Master Kue Xiao's mind before he turned his sights to the dueling ring once more. After executing the dragon transformation palm, the first elder seemed to have morphed into a soaring dragon, bolting from place to place with a speed so swift that it was nigh impossible to accurately determine his whereabouts. The crowd felt as if they were seeing a massive dragon towering on top of the dueling ring, treading around the place and launching attacks from all directions. It was such an impressive sight that it was hard to tear one's eyes away from the battle. Not bad, Zhong Xian thought. There were indeed plenty of formidable experts on the Forsaken Continent. After fighting 15 rounds, he was starting to think that this was all the experts of Buyuan City, so he could not help looking down on this new challenger. However, it seemed like this new challenger was instead a worthy opponent. Putting everything aside, just the other party's palm strike was a joy to behold. Even for him, if he showed the slightest gap, there was a chance that he could lose the battle. Zhong Xian activated the Eye of Insight, and before long, he was able to discern some of the flaws in the other party's moves. Using his finger as a sword, he jabbed forward with incredible speed. In order to avoid revealing his identity, he still chose not to use the God's Sword intent for this move. That being said, he did infuse the crux of the Heaven's Pathsword art into it. This single jab carried a transcendent aura to it. It appeared to be a simple move, but somehow, it was impossible to predict its trajectory, as if it did not follow a predetermined path as the laws of the world would have enforced. If there was one word to describe it, it was simply unfathomable. As soon as it appeared, it seemed to gravitate toward the offensive trajectory of the dragon transformation palm. Mysteriously, it felt as if the dragon in the sky was drawn to the finger jab as well. It simply continued rushing toward the sword chi, as if a moth drawn to a flame. Seeing this, Zhong Xian could not help but chuckle. This was a move that he had casually come up with after being inspired by how Elder Yuan used the Northern Sea Dragon Orb to tease the Serpentine Dragon. In this case, he used his sword chi to form a gravitating power that capitalized on the momentum of the dragon transformation palm to draw it toward his finger jab, causing the other party to lose control of his own body. Go! Zhong Xian's sword chi shot forth. Boom! A resounding explosion echoed in the air, causing the entire dueling ring to tremble non-stop. The first elder never would have thought that the other party would use the momentum of his own palm strike to control his movements. Everything happened so swiftly that before he could even recover, a stabbing pain had already pierced his throat. Lowering his head, he realized that the other party's sword chi had sliced through his neck. What a formidable offense! I have never seen swordsmanship like this before. With a creak, the first elder's head fell to the ground with a bewildered look on his face. Soon after, his body collapsed into a heap as well. Even at the moment of his death, he dared not believe that his ultimate technique had been undone by a mere surge of sword chi. This. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao's body stiffened. He was so shocked that he could hardly speak a word at all. To be able to neutralize the dragon transformation palm and kill the first elder within a single move. Just who the hell is this fellow? With such fighting prowess, Would I stand a chance against him if I stepped forward? Chapter 2025 I'll let you choose your favorite way to die. Finally, I have gathered all of the ethereal coins I need. Zhongxian was overjoyed to see the starting digit of the balance of his ethereal card growing from a T to a 2. He had thought that he would have scared away the cultivators from the ethereal hall due to the overwhelming prowess he had displayed, but from the looks of it, it seemed like he had been overthinking the matter. It seemed like there were plenty of masochists there who enjoyed being killed by him after all. The elder in charge of the ethereal hall's dueling ring looked at Zhongxian and asked, "Do you wish to continue?" "There's no need for that anymore." Zhongxian waved his hand with a smile as he walked out of the dueling ring. Wait a moment. A figure suddenly leaped onto the dueling ring. "I would like to have a duel with you." He was none other than Pavilion Master Kue Xiao. He was usually unfazed by most matters, but after witnessing the defeat of the first elder, his fighting will had been ignited for the first time in many years. He wanted to know how well he could fare against such a powerful opponent. Yet, who would have thought that right after he registered at the counter, the other party would suddenly withdraw from the dueling ring and leave? "You can't just excite me and leave me hanging right after. That's unfair. I still have matters to attend to, so pardon me for not being able to entertain your request." Zhongxian waved his hand leisurely. After earning the amount of money that he needed, he did not have any motivation to carry on fighting. It was not as if he was a battle maniac after all, he would only fight when there was a need for him to do so. "Have a duel with me first before leaving. I want to see just how powerful you are," Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said as he released a surge of zhenqi to block Zhongxian's path. A thought had arisen in his mind after witnessing how this young man defeated Elder Hongwu and the first elder with ease. "I'm not free," Zhongxian replied impatiently. He was in a rush to deliver money to the elder so that he could head to the Sea of Exiled Stars with those from the 7-star pavilion. It would be a tragedy if he somehow missed them due to getting delayed here. "Then I'll have to ask you to make time for me," Pavilion Master Kue Xiao scoffed as he launched a palm strike toward Zhongxian. His palm strike was not as imposing as the dragon transformation palm, but the sheer sharpness of the attack made it a huge threat. It was aimed at a point that left Zhongxian with no choice to retaliate. If the latter continued hesitating, he would surely be injured. The abrupt assault made Zhongxian frown in displeasure. He tilted his body slightly as he took a small step to the left. It was an extremely minor movement, but it effectively unraveled Pavilion Master Kue Xiao's palm strike. "You have really keen eyes." Pavilion Master Kue Xiao's eyes gleamed with excitement. It was no wonder the other party was able to defeat the first elder so easily. The other party's ability to overcome his attack with minimal movements was truly a beautiful work of art. He never would have expected someone to be capable of something like this. To untrained eyes, it would have appeared nothing more than a mere sidestep, and it was excessive to be so impressed by such a simple movement. However, as the person behind the palm thrust, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao was well aware that his move had a total of 136 transformations in order to deal with all kinds of scenarios. No matter how his opponent reacted to his palm strike, he would have a way to press on and eventually corner his opponent. Yet, that single move was completely out of the calculations of his transformations. This was because that location happened to be the blind spot of his attack, such that his energy would not be able to flow smoothly if he attempted to force that attack. Just like that, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao's palm strike fell empty. He could not imagine how powerful the young man's intuition and reflexes were in order to make such a sharp judgment in the midst of a battle. Intrigued, he began on his next move. On the other hand, seeing how the other party was practically throwing himself at him in order to stop him from leaving, Zhongxian said with a frown, "If you insist on it, I'll have to ask you to pay me 2,560 ethereal coins." It was surprising how quickly the situation had turned around. Initially, he was worried that he was scaring customers away with his overwhelming might, but who could have thought that this fellow over here would be drawn to his strength instead, desperately trying to keep him there. "If you can take me down, I'll give you 10,000 ethereal coins." Pavilion Master Kue Xiao harumphed coldly. What did mere ethereal coins matter? He had mountains of those in his storage ring. As the head of the 7-star pavilion, Any problem that could be solved with money was not a problem to him at all. He would pay any amount of money as long as he could explore the depths of the other party's strength. 10,000 ethereal coins? Zhongxian was stunned. You are being too kind. How can I accept so much money from you? Normally, he would only earn 2,560 ethereal coins each time around. Thus, he was a little taken aback to see the price getting jacked up fourfold all of a sudden. We can talk about that after you have defeated me, hoo. Seeing how the other party was acting as if he had already won the battle, Pavilion Master Mo Xiao's face turned livid. With a roar, he thrust his palm forward with a speed 2 times faster than before. But with just very slight movements, Zhongxian was able to avoid his moves with ease. He placed his fingers under his chin contemplatively as he asked, "Since you are willing to pay so much, I shouldn't take advantage of you. All right, feel free to tell me how you wish to be defeated. I'll try to fulfill your request as best as I can." What? Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao nearly fainted on the spot. You are asking me how I wish to be defeated? What the heck do you mean by that? Are you trying to tell me that you are so powerful that there are plenty of methods you can use to defeat me? You must be joking. There's no need to get too excited. You are still rather powerful, so the choices you have are quite limited, Zhongxian explained with a smile. As the saying went, the customers are the masters. What else could he possibly do after the other party offered him 10,000 ethereal coins? Nowadays, the service was much more important than the product. Since he was accepting so much money, he would have to make sure the other party enjoyed the entire process thoroughly. Limited. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao gnashed his teeth together in fury. So, you are saying that even though I am strong, you still have several ways that to defeat me? Very well, let me see what you're capable of then. Feeling so stifled that he could explode, Pavilion Master Kuei was just about to speak when the other party beat him to it. Indeed. All in all, there are just 173 options. There's the fist smashing your head package, a palm blasting off your head package, sword chi severing your neck package, a leg crushing your heart package. If physical means aren't enough to satisfy for you, I also offer various soul and mind crushing services as well. May I know which one you prefer? 173 options. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao nearly spurted blood. When the other party said limited, he had thought that it would be less than 10, but it seemed like he was being too optimistic. Was this fellow being serious? Those who could defeat him in a battle, even in the same cultivation realm, could be easily counted on 2 hands, but this fellow was actually asking him to choose a way to die while fighting with him. If you are that capable, why don't you kill me right now? By this point, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao could not be bothered to waste his breath with the other party. He channeled his energy into his palm and pressed it down upon his opponent. This was his strongest battle technique. Bolting lightning clutching cloud. The execution of this technique produced a deafening rumble reminiscent of thunder. If one achieved a mastery of major accomplishment in the technique, one would be able to even shatter lightning bolts and dissipate clouds with a single palm strike. He would not execute this palm strike easily because there was no one within the sect who would be able to withstand it. However, he simply could not stand just how arrogant the fellow before him was, so he decided to execute his trump card. Voila! His palms descended like 2 massive mountains, crushing everything in its pathway. The surrounding space seemed to have frozen under the sheer pressure, rendering those that stood in its path incapable of fleeing. But Zhongxian chuckled softly on the spot, seemingly oblivious to the overwhelming strength of this attack. You wish to be killed right now? That's easy. So, he made a move. Who? In contrast to Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao's offense, Zhongxian's palm strike appeared to be weak and powerless, reminiscent of a light breeze. Pa. Before the 2 palms could collide, Zhongxian's palm was already right above Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao's head. The latter's vision immediately went black as the palm smashed his brain right into his chest. Putong. A corpse fell to the ground. It sure is weird. I offered him so many services, but all he wanted was to be killed right away. I guess that masochistic fellow just couldn't wait for the climax, Zhongxian muttered beneath his breath as he walked out of the dueling ring. To be honest, the other party was plenty strong. Without using the Library of Heaven's path, he had to admit that he had been pressured slightly by the other party's offense. However, facing numerous assassinations from the experts of the Hall of Gods had allowed his comprehension of battle to deepen significantly. Even without the Library of Heaven's path, there was no one in the same cultivation realm who could be a match for him anymore. It was with such confidence that he had dared step into the dueling ring and face any opponent. Chapter 2026. Are you willing to become an elder? In the real ethereal hall, a pale-faced elder looked at the receptionist beside him and anxiously urged, "Quick, check who that person is." He was the elder of the ethereal hall who had demanded 20,000 ethereal coins from Zhongxian in exchange for a trip on the Seven-Star Pavilion's immortal beast to the Sea of Exiled Stars. It was unbelievable, but he had just witnessed an individual winning 16 consecutive battles without sustaining the slightest bit of damage. He had not been told that the last two opponents were the first elder and the head of the Seven-Star Pavilion, but through their battle techniques, he was still able to deduce a thing or two. In other words, someone had just thrashed the entire Seven-Star Pavilion in Bun City's ethereal hall. Even the semi-divinity realm pavilion master Kuei Xiao was not a match for the young man. This news would surely cause a huge uproar across the Forsaken Continent. Elder, the other party seems to have used some kind of isolation formation that prevents us from tracing the details of his ethereal token. We were only able to deduce that he's likely in one of the private chambers of our ethereal hall, but we still can't confirm his identity, the receptionist reported. They had checked on the other party as soon as he defeated Meng Han, the top ranker of the Seven-Star Pavilion's core disciples, but it was as if the other party had predicted that they would make such a move and set up an isolation formation in advance. As such, they were only able to gather his rough location. There is a total of 13,700 private chambers here. Start sieving through the records to narrow down the targets to those who have reached the true immortal realm and whose timeline coincides with that of Liu Yang's arrival. I want a list of their names as soon as possible, the elder instructed. It was infeasible to check all the private chambers one by one, but there were methods to narrow the targets down. After you find him, make sure to accord him the highest level of hospitality. Don't let him leave by any means. I'll come right over to pay my respects to him, the elder said. A person who could defeat the head of the Seven-Star Pavilion was bound to be an extraordinary figure, even if the latter's cultivation was lowered to the true immortal realm. The receptionist nodded, but just as she was about to get to work, the young lady managing the front reception suddenly called out. "Elder, the young man who intends to head to the Sea of Exiled Stars is looking for you urgently." "He's looking for me." The elder waved his hand impatiently. "Tell him that I'm not free. I won't waste my time entertaining him if he doesn't have the money." What was more important at the moment was for him to find that expert. He did not have any time to waste on a mere true immortal realm lad. He said that. The young lady paused for a brief moment before continuing. "He has already managed to gather the required ethereal coins. He's here to pay the sum." "He has already gathered the required ethereal coins?" The elder was stunned. A thought suddenly flashed through his mind, and he felt as if his mind had just gone through a mini-explosion. His eyes widened as he muttered beneath his breath, "Could it be him?" He immediately turned to the young lady and exclaimed, "Hurry up and invite him in." True immortal realm, check. Thinking about it, the other party had told him to wait for a moment. Then Liu Yang had suddenly appeared in the ethereal hall's dueling ring and won 16 matches straight. And right after the duel ended, the other party came rushing over to tell him that he had raised the required money. Timing, check. More importantly, Liu Yang had said that he had earned enough and would not be fighting anymore after winning the 15th round. Doing a quick calculation, the accumulated earnings at the 15th round happened to be slightly more than 20,000 ethereal coins. Price, check. While he was still in the midst of his contemplation, Zhongxian walked into the room and passed a card over. "Here's the 20,000 ethereal coins," he said. The elder quickly snapped out of his daze and received the ethereal card with both of his hands. Checking the contents, there were indeed 20,000 ethereal coins inside. His body tensed up a little as he nervously asked, "May I know how I should address you?" "Don't be mistaken. It's not that I'm trying to probe into your identity or anything. It's just that. I'll need to introduce you to the 7-star pavilion later on, so I'll have to know your name and your background. Of course, of course. Zhong Xian nodded. I am Liu Yang. Putong. The collapsed elder struggled a little as he rose back to his feet. As he looked at the young man before him, he could feel his eyes slowly becoming a little moist. If only he had known that this fellow was so formidable, he never would have thought of profiting off him. Who could have known that this ordinary-looking young man would actually be able to defeat the entire 7-star pavilion? Were you the one in the dueling ring earlier? The elder eventually popped the question. You mentioned that it would cost 20,000 ethereal coins, and I couldn't think of a better way to raise the money within such a short period of time. So, I could only try my luck at the dueling ring. It's fortunate that my opponents weren't very strong, or else I really would have had trouble trying to raise the money, Zhong Xian replied with a bright smile. Since he did not reveal his god's sword intent or expose his identity as the head of the Myriad Beasts Hall, it should be fine for him to admit to this. After all, he could not possibly not lift even a finger just to avoid the Hall of Gods, right? Your opponents weren't very strong. The elder swayed a little on the spot as he tried to hold back the blood welling up at the back of his throat. Do you know whom you just fought against? Are you honestly saying that the first elder and the head of the 7-star pavilion aren't strong at all? What would be considered strong in your eyes? If only I'd known that you were this powerful, I never would have dared demand money from you, the elder muttered in a daze beneath his breath and sighed deeply. Lifting his gaze once more, he looked at the young man before him and said, Rest assured, I'll contact the 7-star pavilion right now. As he spoke, he quietly passed the ethereal card back. It was not that he was not interested in the money, but he did not dare accept it. If he offended an expert of this caliber, he could imagine that the life ahead of him would be a living hell. The elder took out a communication jade token and wrote a few words on it. A few moments later, he turned to Zhong Xian and said, Elder Liu, the head of the 7-star pavilion wishes to meet you personally. Shall we head there? As soon as the elder reported what that had happened earlier, the other party had immediately requested for him to take Zhong Xian over. Naturally, the elder immediately understood what was going on. He knew that the young man before him was going to undergo a massive change in his standing, so he unhesitatingly changed his form of address to Elder Liu as well. All right. Zhong Xian nodded. The 7-star pavilion was located relatively close to the ethereal hall. Within 10 minutes, they were already on their way into the Celestial Dipper Palace, the central hall of the 7-star pavilion. Sitting in the middle of the room was Pavilion Master Kue Xiao, the first elder, and Elder Hong Wu. Upon seeing the two of them walking over, they centered their gazes upon Zhong Xian. The figure in the virtual ethereal hall was young, but the person standing before them was even more so. All in all, he appeared to be no more than 30 years in age. He was only in his 20s, but he had already reached the heavenly true immortal realm and become so powerful that even they were not a match for him in the same cultivation realm. Are you the person who won 16 matches earlier in the ethereal hall? Pavilion Master Kue Xiao asked. As the other party's appearance in the ethereal hall and in reality was different, they could not really be sure if they were the same person. Yes. Zhong Xian nodded. I have some urgent matters that require me to head to the Sea of Exiled Stars as soon as possible. Pavilion Master Kue, would it be fine if I shared a ride with you? I'll compensate you according to the market price. On the way there, the elder had already told him that the person whom he would be meeting was Pavilion Master Kue Xiao of the 7-star pavilion. Had it been in the past, he would still have had some deference for semi-divinity realm experts. However, after meeting Han Zhenqiu and Qin Yuan, killing 4 heavenly high immortals from the Hall of Gods, and witnessing Little Chick devouring a semi-divinity artifact, his deference was slowly wearing off. You are heading to the Sea of Exiled Stars, too? Pavilion Master Kue frowned upon hearing those words. Brother Liu, may I ask which sect you are from? Pardon my ignorance, but I don't recall having heard your name before. Out of fear of crossing the indigenous population, the experts of the Forsaken Continent would rarely make their way over to the Sea of Exiled Stars. However, the other party actually intended to make his way on his own accord. This reminded him of the matter concerning the Azure Bridge. Could the young man before him possibly be a genius from some other sect? If that was the case, Elder Hong Wu would not stand a chance at all. It was not that easy to advance to the high immortal realm, but if a sect devoted all of its resources into grooming a single person, it should not be too difficult. Naturally, such a talented young man was worth a sect investing all its resources into. Zhong Xian clasped his fist and said, "I am an unaffiliated cultivator." If he said that he was from the Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion, the other party would immediately think of the God's Sword intent. If he said that he was from the Myriad Beasts Hall, the other party would immediately think of the newly inaugurated sect leader. Instead of going to the trouble of trying to explain himself later on, it would better for him to maintain a low profile. Shortly after he caused a commotion in the Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion, he faced an assassination attempt from the Hall of Gods. The same happened after he got too high profile in the Myriad Beasts Hall. So, what he had to do right now was conceal his glow so that others would not notice him too much. Unaffiliated cultivator? Pavilion Master Kue Xiao's eyes immediately lit up. Then, a slight frown emerged on his forehead as he asked, "May I know the reason behind your visit to the Sea of Exiled Stars, Brother Liu?" "It's to resolve my private business," Zhong Xian replied. Private business. Hearing those words, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao finally heaved a sigh of relief. Since it was a private business, it had nothing to do with the Azure Bridge. That being the case, the young man should really be unaffiliated with any of the other sects. Pavilion Kue Xiao looked at Zhong Xian with piercing intensity as he asked, "Since you are an unaffiliated cultivator, Brother Liu, may I know if you are interested in joining our 7-star pavilion?" Joining the 7-star pavilion? Zhong Xian was stunned. What was with this sudden invitation? He was rather certain that he had maintained a low profile ever since he arrived in Buyuan City. All he did was fight 16 battles earlier on and defeat a bunch of not too strong opponents. Surely battles of that caliber would not be enough to catch the attention of the leader of one of the 6 sect. Indeed. As long as you become an elder of our 7-star pavilion and represent our sect in a battle, I'll gather all of the resources of the sect to help you reach the heavenly high immortal realm within 10 days. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao offered with a shrewd gleam in his eyes. You would help me reach the heavenly high immortal realm? Zhong Xian narrowed his eyes. There were 2 reasons he was in such a hurry to head to the Sea of Exiled Stars. One was to uncover the secrets behind the Godblood Rock, and the other was to gather soul cultivation techniques to raise his soul cultivation so that he could achieve a breakthrough to the high immortal realm as soon as possible. After facing 2 assassination attempts from the Hall of Gods, it would be a lie to say that he was not concerned. He felt a heavy pressure prompting him to raise his fighting prowess as quickly as possible. Thinking back, he had been in the Azure for more than 20 days now, but he had only managed to raise his cultivation from Dimension Shatterer Realm primary stage to the heavenly true immortal realm. How slow and pathetic. After all, there was a time difference between that of the Azure and the Master Teacher continent. 20 days here was equivalent to more than half a year in the latter world. That's right. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao nodded. There was no true immortal who would not be tempted by an offer to achieve a breakthrough to the high immortal realm. You mentioned earlier that he wanted me to represent the 7-star pavilion in a battle. May I know what the battle's regarding? Will I face any danger? Zhong Xian asked. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. It was no easy feat to help someone raise their cultivation up to the heavenly high immortal realm. Since the other party was willing to offer him something as attractive as this, it was likely that the other party had to gain something out of it as well. Rest assured, it's just a duel among the 6 sects. Everyone will be of the same cultivation realm, and there won't be any danger. If you surrender, no one will go too far, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said. Furthermore, if you do it well, I'll nominate you as my successor. You'll inherit my position in the future, becoming the leader of the 7-star pavilion. The purpose of the battle was to determine the leader of the expedition, so they would stop wherever appropriate. There would not be any danger at all. As for entering the Azure Bridge and challenging the warriors of the Hall of Gods, this was a rare opportunity to achieve a breakthrough to the semi-divinity realm. It might be dangerous, but the rewards were definitely worth the risk. Both he and Hall Master Qin Yuan from the Myriad Beasts Hall had reached their current realms by surviving the trip to the Azure Bridge. As long as the other party reached the semi-divinity realm, he was bound to become the leader of the Seven-Star Pavilion. There was no one who would possibly oppose it. "I'll become your successor and inherit your position in the future." "It's fine, I won't need that." Zhong Xian shook his head. Then, a thought suddenly came to his mind, and he looked at Pavilion Kue Xiao with a smile. "However, since you said that the battle won't be dangerous, I don't mind becoming an elder of the Seven-Star Pavilion, and as an elder, I should be able to access the libraries of the Seven-Star Pavilion, right?" Chapter 2027. Could he be Zhong Xian? Of course. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao nodded. There were many books in the Seven-Star Pavilion due to the nature of its operations. All of them were pretty much goods that could be sold. As an elder and possibly the future Pavilion Master, the other party was, of course, qualified to browse through their book collection. Then it won't be a problem then. I'll agree to it. Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. As long as he could reach the high immortal realm, he would be in a much safer position against the Hall of Gods. It could be said that pretty much all the problems that he was facing at the moment would be resolved. If the other party was able to help him reach the high immortal realm as quickly as possible, he did not mind doing a favor for them. He was already an elder in the Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion and the head of the Myriad Beasts Hall. He did not mind taking on another role. In any case, he was assuming a persona at the moment. At the very most, he would just have to get his clone to disguise himself as him later on. On the other hand, seeing that the other party was agreeable, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao heaved a sigh of relief. As the information that was going to be relayed afterward involved the confidential issues of the Seven-Star Pavilion, it would be inconvenient for those from the Ethereal Hall to remain there for too long. Thus, the Ethereal Hall elder bade farewell and left. After the elder left, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao flipped his wrist and took out a jade bottle. "This is a high immortal tier breakthrough pill. It'll increase the chances of achieving a breakthrough to high immortal realm for you by 20%. Since you have already reached the heavenly true immortal realm, as long as you prepare yourself well, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to make a breakthrough." Even though it was just 20%, this difference could easily spell a vast difference to many. Not to mention, the young man before him clearly possessed exceptional mastery in his cultivation technique and battle technique. With the help of the breakthrough pill, it was a sealed deal that the other party would achieve a breakthrough. "You have my gratitude." Zhong Xian received the jade bottle gratefully. He had never seen it in person before, but from the books he had read, he knew just how valuable the breakthrough pill was. A single pill was equivalent to the price of a high immortal tier artifact. It was really a huge favor to receive such an invaluable pill from the other party. It seemed like he would have to do his best in the later fight. "There's no need to stand on ceremony. There's a private chamber in our sect that is forged solely out of Calm Heart Stone. If you cultivate in there, not only would you not be affected by inner demons, your chances of achieving a breakthrough will also be increased significantly. Elder Liu, feel free to tell me if you would like to use that chamber." "I can take you over right now," Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said. "There's no need for that. I only have some doubts regarding my cultivation, so I would like to browse through some books to resolve it. May I know where the library of the Seven-Star Pavilion is located?" "I would like to head there to look," Zhong Xian replied. As someone who cultivated the Heaven's Path divine art, he was unaffected by inner demons. Thus, he had no need for the private chamber made of Calm Heart Stone. The only time that it had happened was an unfortunate mishap, and it had been resolved by the pendant that Luo Ruoxin had given him. "You wish to browse through some books?" Pavilion Master Kue Xiao had thought that the young man would immediately consume the breakthrough pill, but who could have known that the other party would have the patience to resolve the doubts in his heart first? He could not help but nod in approval. To be able to resist the temptation of rushing into a breakthrough and instead bide his time till he found the most suitable method to do so. It was no wonder this young man was so powerful. With this, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao felt much more assured. He turned to the First Elder and said, "First Elder, I'll be troubling you to take Elder Liu there." At this point, Pavilion Master Kue pondered deeply for a moment before adding, if there's a need for it, he's also authorized to view the confidential books in the hidden chamber. Yes, Pavilion Master Kuei, First Elder replied with a nod. The 7-star pavilion had its own lineage and heritage, but it would still collect books of all sorts for auctioning purposes. As such, their collection was really one to behold. It was just that the auctions that they held were often for the top echelons of the Forsaken Continent, so the books that they dealt with contained the secret arts of other sects. As such, the disciples and elders were forbidden from accessing that content, or else it could undermine the credibility of the organization as a business partner. However, given how matured this young man was, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao did not think that there would be any problem allowing the young man to access this collection, especially if the other party needed them to push for a breakthrough to the high immortal realm. Of course, this was in consideration of the fact that the Azure Bridge was about to descend, or else he would never have made such an exception. The libraries were all located in the Celestial Authority Palace. Following the First Elder, he was soon inside the Elder's library. Feel free to look around. I'll be heading back now, but please do inform any of the nearby disciples to call me if you need any assistance, the First Elder said before taking his leave. Zhongxian finally took a good look at his surroundings. This library was much more spacious than that of the Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion. Proportionate to its size, there were many more books there as well. All kinds of cultivation technique manuals could be seen placed neatly atop shelves. Its collection was much more diverse than that of the Myriad Beasts Hall and Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion. It did not take long for him to collect all the books on the first floor. He quickly proceeded on to the second floor, then to the third floor. Within 6 hours, he collected every last book that could be found there into the Library of Heaven's Path. Following which, he headed to a nearby private chamber and looked through his gains. There are some true immortal realm soul cultivation technique manuals here, but not enough for me to compile a Heaven's Path soul art. The books in the 7-star pavilion covered many different fields. All in all, there were several hundred books regarding soul cultivation techniques, but that was still insufficient for Zhongxian. As high immortal realm cultivation technique manuals, while the collection in the 7-star pavilion was indeed larger, there were only 30 or so books. He was still a long way off from compiling the corresponding Heaven's Path divine art. From the looks of it, it isn't too possible for me to make a breakthrough in the short term. Zhongxian sighed deeply as he rubbed his glabella. It seemed like he would still have to make a trip to Starchaser Palace after all. While Zhongxian was in the library, the atmosphere in the Celestial Dipper Palace was particularly heavy. Pavilion Master Kuei, do you intend to substitute me with that outsider? Elder Hong Wu's face was incredibly livid. Pardon my insolence, but I can't accept your judgment. You have fought the warriors of the Hall of Gods before, but you can't even withstand a single blow from the other party. What about my judgment are you unable to accept? Pavilion Master Kuei frowned. He isn't from our 7-star pavilion. What right does he have to be bestowed with the centennial opportunity to challenge the Azure Bridge? Elder Hong Wu replied indignantly. That person claims to be an unaffiliated cultivator named Liu Yang, but the truth is that we know nothing about his background. We have instructed our intelligence team to look into him, but so far, they haven't been able to uncover anything about him. If he turns out to be an expert from the Hall of Gods in disguise, this could potentially become our undoing. No, this won't do. I need to force him to spit out his true identity. There was no way someone who was so powerful would be able to remain completely unknown. But given the vastness of the 7-star pavilion's intelligence network, if there was anything that could be uncovered about Liu Yang, they should have uncovered it by now. It was as if this fellow had appeared out of thin air. Such a situation was really worrying. After all, the outcome on the Azure Bridge would determine how the next 100 years of their sect would be. If anything happened, there was a good chance that their 7-star pavilion would be dropped from the ranks of the 6 sects. I have fought the warriors of the Hall of Gods before, and his battle techniques and cultivation technique are all unlike theirs, Pavilion Master Kuei replied with a shake of his head. But that being said, it's likely that Liu Yang is an alias he has assumed. I have already instructed the First Elder to investigate him based on his appearance. We should be able to get some results soon enough. As the head of the 7-star pavilion, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao was not so negligent as to disregard these doubts. The very act of nominating Liu Yang to the Azure Bridge was as good as declaring his intention to make the other party the successor of the Seven-Star Pavilion. Naturally, he had to exercise the highest level of vigilance regarding the matter. Who? Right after those words were spoken, the first elder walked into the hall. How did it go? Pavilion Master Kue Xiao asked. I have already relayed the instructions to all the branches of our Seven-Star Pavilion, but none of them have any information about a genius who shares the same appearance and soul aura as Liu Yang, the first elder replied. The Seven-Star Pavilion was very different from the Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion. Just as it was a sect, it was also a multi-city corporation that had countless branches all over the Forsaken Continent. For this reason, its intelligence network was also quite developed. Nothing at all? Pavilion Master Kue Xiao frowned. He pondered for a moment before asking, where are sect leader Zhongxian and Hall Master Xingyang's portraits and soul auras? They are over here, the first elder said as he passed 2 jade tokens over. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao tapped on them, and 2 figures immediately materialized in the air. They were Zhongxian and the Xingyang that he had disguised as. As Zhongxian had stayed in the Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion for some time, it was not too surprising that the other powers had managed to obtain his portrait and soul aura. However, he had only been at the Myriad Beasts Hall for a single day, and he had hardly met anyone. Yet, the Seven-Star Pavilion had somehow obtained his details. It had to be said that its intelligence network was extremely fearsome. Seeing Pavilion Master Kue examining the appearances and soul auras of the two intently, the first elder asked, Pavilion Master Kue, are you suspecting that Liu Yang might be either sect leader Zhong or Hall Master Zheng in disguise? Pavilion Master Kue nodded in response. I know that sect leader Zhong is a heavenly true immortal realm cultivator, which tallies with Liu Yang's description. However, the former is known for his unparalleled swordsmanship, whereas Liu Yang was able to defeat both you and me with his bare fists. It doesn't seem very likely that they are the same person, the first elder said with a frown. As for Hall Master Zheng, according to the news we have received thus far, his cultivation is at heavenly high immortal, and due to that, he was able to tame the serpentine dragon, 9-headed fiery phoenix, and the others with ease. Since that's the case, it's even more unlikely for him to be Liu Yang. Besides, I examined their soul auras carefully, and it's clear that they are 3 different individuals. The first elder was simply unable to understand the basis behind Pavilion Master Kue's suspicion. There's a plant that grows only in the city of collapsed space called transmogrification. It allows a cultivator to alter their appearance and soul aura, Pavilion Master Kue explained. I have seen this plant in person once, but I was unable to obtain it. Pavilion Master Kue, you are suspecting that Liu Yang might have consumed transmogrification, the first elder asked. I'm not implying that. I'm just trying to tell you that it's possible to disguise one's appearance and soul aura. Just because the two of them appear and feel completely different from one another doesn't necessarily mean that they are 2 different people, Pavilion Master Kue replied calmly. It's just that. I can't help but find it a little queer. Queer? It was just a few days ago that the Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion found itself a sect leader who has comprehended the God's sword intent, and not long later, a formidable genius who possesses unparalleled beast-taming skills emerged amid the Myriad Beasts Hall. Then, all of a sudden, an invincible true immortal realm cultivator whom none of us are a match for appeared in our city. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao shook his head. Don't you think that it's too much of a coincidence for all of them to appear like that? Those words stumped the first elder. He had not paid much attention to this matter before, but thinking about it, it did seem rather suspicious. Under normal circumstances, it would already be a huge blessing if geniuses of such caliber appeared once every few centuries. Yet, within a short span of 10 or so days, 3 of such figures suddenly emerged. There was indeed something really unnatural about this situation. Pavilion Master Kue, do you find Liu Yang suspicious, too? Elder Hongwu's eyes lit up hopefully upon hearing those words. He had thought that the Pavilion Master had gotten a little too excited by the appearance of such a formidable expert, to the extent that the latter was ignoring the possible threats. However, It seemed like he had underestimated the shrewdness of the man who had ruled over the 7-star pavilion for many years. At the very least, the points that were listed out were not things that he had considered before. Well, I wouldn't really say that I'm suspicious of Liu Yang. Pavilion Master Kuei shook his head. I asked the elder of the ethereal hall about how he came to know Liu Yang earlier. According to what he said, Liu Yang was initially intending to rent an aerial immortal beast to get to the Sea of Exiled Stars as soon as possible, and it was the elder who recommended that he join our ride. However, the ethereal hall hiked up the price by quite a bit in order to earn a commission for their service, and this forced Liu Yang to head to the dueling ring. From this, the rationale behind his appearance in the dueling ring doesn't seem to be to capture our attention, and he doesn't seem to have any interest in the 7-star pavilion. Furthermore, based on how he has conducted himself before us thus far, it doesn't seem like he's even aware that he defeated us in the dueling ring. This Pavilion Master Kuei's analysis left the First Elder and Elder Hong Wu a little lost for words. Chapter 2028 Head Whipping Cultivation Method. As they recalled those bitter memories in that dueling ring, it did seem like the other party had not given a damn about who they were. Based on their encounter with Liu Yang, the latter was not a completely tactless person. If the latter had known their true identities in advance, he would not have thrashed them so mercilessly. Everything that had happened seemed to suggest that Liu Yang had not approached them intentionally, which meant their conspiracy theories did not hold. It could also be that he's shrewd enough to have set all of this up in order to fool me. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao shook his head grimly. That was also why I gave him the breakthrough pill and promised to help him achieve a breakthrough to the high immortal realm. I wanted to gauge how he would react when I held him in high esteem, but instead of making more requests, he asked me for permission to access our repository of books. The First Elder and Elder Hong Wu fell silent. It seemed like the Pavilion Master had been thinking about this matter right from the start. His every single action had another motive behind it. The fact that the Pavilion Master had given Liu Yang a breakthrough pill and promised to help him reach the high immortal realm showed just how highly the Pavilion Master regarded him. Liu Yang should have caught the drift as well, and under such circumstances, it was likely that any request, even if it was slightly overboard, would be accepted. But it was as if Liu Yang was completely oblivious to all of that. As though a fool, all he requested was access to their library. Of course, knowledge was an extremely valuable asset to a cultivator, but it had to be slowly accumulated over time. It was not as if one could attain enlightenment after reading for a couple of hours. As such, Liu Yang's request was nothing compared to what he could have asked for. Pavilion Master Kuei turned to the First Elder and asked, "What is Liu Yang doing at the moment?" "He's still reading in the library." "He isn't out yet," the First Elder replied, clasping his fist. "I see. Since that's the case, try to find out what books he's reading, compile a list, and submit it to me," Pavilion Master Kuei instructed. "Yes, Pavilion Master Kuei," the First Elder replied before taking his leave. A few moments later, the First Elder returned with a conflicted look on his face. "How did it go?" "Well, Pavilion Master Kuei, this is the recording from the library. You should take a look at it personally," the First Elder replied with a reddened face. Perplexed, Pavilion Master Kuei took a jade token from the First Elder's hand, and with a tap, its contents immediately floated into appearance. In the recording, Liu Yang could be seen standing in the middle of the library, whipping his head everywhere. The recording was roughly 10 minutes long, and throughout those 10 minutes, he did nothing but whip his head. If a shelf had 10 rows of books, he would whip his head 10 times toward the shelf before moving on to the next one. Is he having a stroke? Pavilion Master Kuei and Elder Hong Wu were stunned. Was the young man not planning to browse through their collection of books? Why was he shaking his head around with such a serious look on his face? It was almost as if he was a young lad trying to practice his head-whipping skills to charm the ladies. Unable to comprehend the reason behind Liu Yang's actions, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao could only say, "Continue keeping tabs on Liu Yang." But even as more recordings were brought into the Celestial Dipper Palace, they showed nothing more than Zhong Xian's frenzied head-whipping. "It doesn't seem like he's trying to steal the secrets of our 7-star pavilion either." The First Elder squeezed these words out from his stifled chest. If the young man was planning to steal their secret arts, he would surely take out their books and secretly copy them down so that he could study how to decipher them later on. However, all this young man did was whip his head for 4 hours straight, not bothering to browse through any of the books. If it was possible to steal a sect's secrets just by whipping one's head, there would not be any secrets in the world anymore. There must be some kind of reason for him to continue whipping his head for 4 hours straight. "Let me give it a try," Elder Hong Wu said. With a flick of his wrist, he took out a couple of books and placed them around him. Following which, he took a deep breath before whipping his head in the same manner as Zhongxian in the recording. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao and the First Elder hurriedly turned their gazes over and asked, "How is it? Did you notice something peculiar?" "My head giddy. I want to puke," Elder Hong Wu said with difficulty. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao and the First Elder. It was only at the 6th hour that Liu Yang finally halted his head whipping. He sat down on the floor and closed his eyes, seemingly at rest. Finally, the crowd heaved a sigh of relief. They were getting lightheaded just by seeing that fellow whip his head all around. They really had no idea how anyone could continue whipping their head like that for 6 hours straight. "His cultivating," Elder Hong Wu exclaimed. It was likely that the young man was exhausted, and he was planning to recuperate a little after shaking his head for so long. Wait. Is he consuming a superior immortal pill? In the recording, not too long after Liu Yang sat down, he began consuming pills. 1 pill, 2 pills, 3 pills. After eating 5 superior immortal pills straight, he suddenly rose to his feet. As a heavenly true immortal, is he really able to assimilate that much medicinal energy? The First Elder's face paled. Superior immortal pills were a cultivation resource that was effective even on high immortal realm experts. Even he would have to take at least 10 days to assimilate the energy from a single one properly. Considering the other party was only at the heavenly true immortal realm, consuming 5 of them at once was tantamount to suicide. Was the young man not afraid of stuffing himself to death? Is he intending on pushing for a breakthrough to the high immortal realm? Pavilion Master Kue Xiao remarked with a frown. But at that moment, Liu Yang suddenly rose to his feet. Hoo. His palm began moving around with astounding ferocity. "Is that my dragon transformation palm?" The First Elder was stunned. The move that the young man was executing was the dragon transformation palm that he specialized in, but somehow, the other party's movements were much swifter and smoother. He had cultivated the battle technique for many years before he was able to master it, but the young man was already able to execute it better than him on his first try. All of a sudden, he felt as if his years of hard work had all gone to waste. No, something is wrong. Isn't he executing this portion a little wrong? Hey, why does it feel like his version is much more logical? It seems to be far stronger than the original, the First Elder remarked in bewilderment. As someone who had immersed himself in mastering the dragon transformation palm for many years, he could tell that the young man's execution of the technique diverged from the original secret manual. But for some reason, it seemed to flow even more smoothly. It was almost as if the other party was using the original version whereas what he had was the pirated version. "Let me give it a try," the First Elder said as he rose to his feet. He executed the dragon transformation palm according to how the young man did. Hong long. With a resounding echo, a surge of zhenqi gushed through his body, and an indomitable aura could be felt from him. This is major accomplishment. The First Elder felt as if he was going bonkers. Even though he had spent many decades studying the dragon transformation palm, he knew that he was still a far way off from reaching major accomplishment. He was famed for being the only cultivator in the 7-star pavilion who had mastered the technique, but in truth, he had already resigned himself to being unable to reach major accomplishment in his lifetime. Yet, who could have known that he would be able to achieve a breakthrough just by imitating the other party's movements? This was a little too fast. At this moment, the person in the recording switched from executing the dragon transformation palm to the flowerless palm. This time, it was Elder Hong Wu's turn to be stunned. Soon enough, he began imitating the young man's movements. Hong long. Similarly, it did not take him too long to surpass the current bottleneck that he was facing. Soon after, the young man began executing Pavilion Master Kue Xiao's bolting lightning clutching clouds, and just like the other two, shortly after Pavilion Master Kue Xiao imitated the young man's movements, he achieved a breakthrough. It took a while for Pavilion Master Kue Xiao to recover from his shock, and he muttered to himself, just by shaking his head for 6 hours, he managed to grasp the most profound battle techniques of our sect and even improved them, making them even more powerful than before. Could it be that whipping one's head can clear one's mind, allowing one to learn battle techniques faster than normal? But he had secretly tried it earlier, and it had only caused his head to spin, leaving him unable to see anything clearly. How did the young man do it? He must have used some kind of secret art to accelerate his learning. But he didn't browse through any of the relevant books at all. How did he manage to learn all of our techniques? Elder Hong Wu was perplexed. Throughout the entire 6 hours of head whipping, the young man had not touched a single book, so how could he have learned their techniques? Not to mention, he had even reached major accomplishment in them within such a short span of time. They had sunk decades into their battle techniques in order to reach their current levels. Pavilion Master Kue paused for a moment before saying, "It could be that he secretly learned them while we were fighting with him." There are incredibly talented people out there who are able to remember every single detail of a battle technique just looking at its execution. It was said that Hall Master Kong possessed such an ability. This was the only way he could reason this out. Otherwise, it made no sense for the other party to be able to learn all their battle techniques and even master them to such a formidable degree just by whipping his head around. Right at that moment, the first elder's anxious voice echoed once more. "Pavilion Master Kue, look." Pavilion Master Kue raised his head. In the recording, after executing the bolting lightning clutching clouds, Zhong Xian clenched his fists together and began executing yet another set of battle techniques. This is Red Dust of 10,000 Li, River of the Purple Sun, Dawn of the 100 Canaries, Obliteration of All Trails. The trio spat out the names of the top battle techniques of the 7-star Pavilion one after another. It was as if the young man in the recording had turned into the founder of the 7-star Pavilion. All sorts of battle techniques and cultivation techniques seemed to flow right out of him, and every single one of them had reached major accomplishment. Utter silence. It took a while before Pavilion Master Kue Xiao's hoarse voice sounded in the air. "There is a total of 23 top-notch battle techniques in our 7-star Pavilion. In history, the elders and Pavilion Masters who were able to master even one of them left their mark on history, becoming famed figures whose names were recited by others even after their death. Yet, he actually managed to master all 23 of them. The 7-star Pavilion had quite a few battle techniques that were on the same level as the bolting lightning clutching clouds, but they were all extremely difficult to cultivate. Every single one of them would take a great deal of time and effort in order to interpret and master. In order to master the bolting lightning clutching clouds, Pavilion Master Mo had gone through a lot of trouble. He had specially paid a visit to the highest peak of the Forsaken Continent to examine thunder and lightning. He had also ventured into the western regions in search of a cloud-shaped accessory. He had even entered the city of collapsed space in order to seek the answer to a doubt he had regarding the battle technique, and he had nearly lost his life there. On the other hand, the young man had only whipped his head for 6 hours, and he had already mastered everything. Furthermore, all the battle techniques that he had executed were far stronger than what Pavilion Master Kue Xiao remembered. In other words, it seemed like the young man had found the flaws in them and corrected all of them. Was it really possible for a human to be that talented? If he becomes our leader, our 7-star Pavilion could very well become the 7-star God Pavilion in the near future. Elder Hong Wu could hardly close his agape mouth. Become our leader. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao looked at Elder Hong Wu curiously. "You aren't going to beat anymore?" It was just a moment ago that Elder Hong Wu had said that he was going to beat the young man up until the latter confessed his true identity. This. Elder Hong Wu's face reddened. "Even though I'm an entire cultivation realm stronger than him, there's no way I could be a match for him. He might not be as discerning as Pavilion Master Kue Xiao, but he knew where he stood. Given the other party's superior battle senses and top-notch battle techniques, there was no way he could be a match for the other party even though his cultivation was higher. If they really fought, It would have surely ended in a tragic defeat for him. He stood no chance at all. He would only be making a joke out of himself if he challenged the other party. Considering that he's able to defeat you despite being a cultivation realm weaker, if he successfully achieves a breakthrough to reach heavenly high immortal, is there any chance that we could win the fight against the other 6 sects and secure the best position? The eyes of the first elder lit up. This. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao fell into deep thought. Sect leader Zhongxian from the Ascendant Cloudsword Pavilion has comprehended the God's Sword intent, so there's a good chance that he'll be able to match high immortals despite only being at the true immortal realm himself. As for the newly appointed Hall Master Zheng Yang of the Myriad Beasts Hall, the fact that he was able to tame the Serpentine Dragon and the others shows that he's no weakling either. Nevertheless, if Liu Yang is neither of them in disguise, he should still be able to stand his ground against them. The first elder pondered over those words for a moment before remarking, "Actually, isn't there a very easy way to verify the matter? Pavilion Master Kuei, you could just enter the ethereal hall and ask Elder Han Zhenqiu and Elder Qin Yuan." Chapter 2029 7-star Immortal Grass. I forgot that there was that as well. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao was stunned for a moment before nodding in agreement. Indeed. He could simply check with those two to see if Liu Yang was either one of those two in disguise. In consideration of their relations, especially during such a critical period, Han Zhenqiu and Qin Yuan would not maliciously lie to him. With such thoughts in mind, he took out the special ethereal token that was exclusive to the top echelons of the Forsaken Continent and immersed his consciousness into it. Within the ethereal hall, he shook the bell at the very center of the area. A moment later, the summoned Han Zhenqiu and Qin Yuan appeared before him. "Pavilion Master Kuei, do you need anything from us?" Qin Yuan asked with a wave of his hand. "May I know if the two of you recognize this person?" With a tap of his finger, a silhouette appeared in the air. It was the image of Zhongxian in his current disguise. "I don't recognize that person." One after another, Han Zhenqiu and Qin Yuan shook their heads. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao heaved a sigh of relief before turning his gaze to Han Zhenqiu. "Brother Han, may I ask if sect leader Zhongxian is currently in the Ascendant Cloudsword Pavilion?" "Our sect leader is currently practicing the Ascendant Cloudsword God formula, and he should be able to achieve a breakthrough very soon. Naturally, he's in our sect at the moment. Where else could he possibly be?" Han Zhenqiu frowned. "Pavilion Master Kuei, may I ask why you are asking this question?" Naturally, there was no way he could compromise Zhongxian's safety by revealing that the latter was not in the sect. He could not allow any more mishaps to occur before the Azure Bridge descended. It was just a casual question, Pavilion Master Kuei replied after receiving a firm response from Han Zhenqiu. Following which, he turned to Qin Yuan and asked, "Then, Brother Qin, may I ask if Hall Master Qin Yuan is in the Myriad Beasts Hall at the moment?" "Of course." Qin Yuan's eyebrows shot up. "Our Hall Master has just tamed the Serpentine Dragon and a few other immortal beasts, so naturally, he has to work on their coordination in preparation for the duel in a few days." "Do you suspect that I'm lying to the group, Pavilion Master Kuei?" "No, that's not what I mean." Pavilion Master Kuei shook his head. "I was just asking due to some doubts I have in my mind. Your answers have clarified my doubts, and for that, I thank you. Apologies for calling you two here on such short notice, but that's all I wanted to ask. I still have some other business to attend to at the moment, so I'll be taking my leave." Knowing that those two were still cultivating in their respective sects, Pavilion Master Kuei left the ethereal hall as a relieved man. Returning to the central hall, he told the two elders staring at him intently, "Sect leader Zhongxian and Hall Master Zheng Yang are currently in their sects. I think that there's a really good chance that Liu Yang is an unaffiliated cultivator." The first elder nodded. It's hard to believe that someone who has comprehended the God's Sword intent or is so capable in beast taming would possess such extraordinary means as to learn battle techniques with just a single glance as well. There were many geniuses in the world, but none of them were talented in everything. It was hard to believe that a person could be so proficient in so many arts at once. If there was really such a person, their name would have long spread far and wide across the Forsaken Continent. Since that's the case, we should spare no resources in grooming Liu Yang, Pavilion Master Kuei declared with a hearty laugh. Previously, when he heard the news that someone in the Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion had comprehended the god's sword intent, he had felt deeply envious. But it seemed like the heavens were kind to their 7-star pavilion as well. At this crucial moment, a genius possessing such extraordinary capabilities appeared right before them. Considering how this young man was able to master the 23 top-notch battle techniques of the 7-star pavilion, once he successfully achieved a breakthrough, there was no one in the world who would be able to stop him. Even the famed sect leader Zhongxian, who had comprehended the god's sword intent, might not necessarily be a match for him. Zhongxian exhaled deeply before walking out of the library. Even though browsing through the library of the 7-star pavilion did not induce any growth in his cultivation, he had gained a deeper understanding of battle techniques, thus furthering his fighting prowess. This was especially so for the 23 battle techniques that he had just learned. They were lacking compared to his god's sword intent, but if he mastered them, they would surely prove to be formidable weapons at critical moments. Barely after leaving the room, the first elder walked over and said, "Elder Liu, Pavilion Master Kuei wishes to meet you." Zhongxian quickly followed the first elder to the Celestial Dipper Palace. "Elder Liu, you have browsed through an entire night's worth of books. May I know if you have had any breakthroughs? If there's any help that we can provide that would aid you in achieving a breakthrough to the high immortal realm, feel free to tell us," Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao said with a smile. "My zhenqi cultivation and physical body are already up to par, but my soul is still a little too weak at the moment to achieve a breakthrough," Zhongxian said. If he could raise his soul cultivation to the true immortal realm, even without the high immortal realm Heaven's Path divine art, he should still be able to achieve a breakthrough using the breakthrough pill. It was just a pity that even though he had collected quite a few soul cultivation techniques in the 7-star pavilion, there still was not enough. "Your soul is still slightly weak at the moment." Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao widened his eyes in realization. It was no wonder the young man did not consume the breakthrough pill right away to push for a breakthrough. In the end, it was because he felt that his soul was still not up to par. It's not too easy to cultivate one's soul. However, you are in luck. One of the treasures of our 7-star pavilion, the 7-star immortal grass, happens to be exceptionally nourishing to the soul. Shall I take you over to give it a try? 7-star immortal grass. Zhongxian repeated the unfamiliar term in confusion. He had browsed through many books ever since he arrived in the Azure, but he had no recollection of this medicinal herb at all. Yes. It's no exaggeration when I say that it's the foundation that has allowed us to stand as one of the 6 sects for the past several thousand years. It's the crux that has sealed our luck, allowing us to groom generation after generation of capable disciples, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao said. The 7-star immortal grass was a medicinal herb that had absorbed the energies that had gathered from the 7 celestial stars above through the sect's formation. It emanated a calming aura that relieved any disturbances in one's mind. For this reason, despite the 7-star pavilion being located in the midst of a bustling city, those in its premises would feel as if they were standing in the midst of serene nature. Such an environment allowed the disciples of the 7-star pavilion to focus their attention on cultivating without being disturbed by mortal distractions. It was through this that they were able to stand alongside the Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion and the other sects. "I'll be troubling Pavilion Master Kuei then." Zhongxian bowed deeply. He was not accepting favors from them blindly. He had noticed that they were peeping on him earlier, and in order to repay the favor, he had intentionally executed their improved battle techniques at a speed slow enough for them to follow. In a sense, it was equivalent to him imparting those moves to them. "It's no trouble. As an elder of the 7-star pavilion, this is one of the privileges that you are entitled to," Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao replied before leading the way forward. Soon, they arrived in the area that corresponded to the polaries of the 7-star pavilion. It was a vast courtyard. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao released the seal around the courtyard, and a 7-colored immortal grass came into appearance. It had 7 leaves, and every single one of them glistened with a different color. They swayed under the tug of the light breeze, and slight ripples could be vaguely seen in the surroundings. Astonishingly, this single feeble-looking plant had reached heavenly high immortal tier. Zhongxian walked up to the immortal grass to take a closer look, and his eyes could not help but light up. It's indeed extremely nourishing to the soul. In just a few moments after entering the courtyard, his soul, which had been stuck at the heavenly pseudo-immortal realm for some time, was on the verge of achieving a breakthrough. As expected of the treasure of the 7-star pavilion, it was indeed an invaluable resource. This is the 7-star immortal grass. Most of the elders who have reached the heavenly true immortal realm choose to achieve a breakthrough here. Under the protection of the immortal grass, they are unperturbed by inner demons, thus making their soul more wholesome, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao explained. Zhongxian nodded in response. The 7-star immortal grass was rather similar to the body tree that he had planted in his myriad ant hive nest back on the master-teacher continent. It was extremely effective in nourishing one's soul. If he cultivated near it, even without a true immortal realm soul cultivation technique, it should not be too difficult for him to achieve a breakthrough in his soul cultivation. There are still 2 more hours before dawn, so you can use this time to cultivate here. We'll be heading off to the Sea of Exiled Stars at daybreak, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao said before leaving the area. After his departure, Zhongxian flicked his wrist and took out several formation flags. Wang. With a light flick, the formation flags flew all around the courtyard and got into position. Right after, a brilliant semispherical light shone in the surroundings, isolating his aura entirely. Naturally, he had obtained these formation flags from Elder Liao back at the Myriad Beasts Hall. The latter was skilled in setting up formations, so he had plenty of such equipment. After finishing his preparatory work, Zhongxian sat down on the floor cross-legged and began drawing his soul out from his glabella. Gu. As he began driving his soul cultivation technique, he could feel the energy from the immortal grass surging into his soul. But a moment later, a frown emerged between his brows. The energy in the surroundings was extremely plentiful, similar to the lake eyes back at Huanyu Empire. Under normal circumstances, even if he just immersed his soul in such an environment, his soul would gradually be nourished. But for some reason, even though he was already driving his soul cultivation technique, he found that he was suddenly unable to assimilate the energy that he had absorbed. Thus, he turned his gaze to the immortal grass, only to see the latter swaying non-stop. The next instant, the energy in the surroundings that was nourishing his soul suddenly vanished without a trace. What's going on here? Zhongxian's face darkened. The situation was very clear. The 7-star immortal grass was the reason behind this anomaly. Who? Zhongxian brought his soul back to his body and walked closer to the immortal grass, wanting to see what was going on. However, barely after he took a step, the spiritual energy in the surroundings jolted a little. That familiar calming energy that was nourishing to souls had returned. With narrowed eyes, Zhongxian drew out his soul through his glabella once more, but just as he was about to absorb the energy, it suddenly vanished again. When Zhongxian brought his soul back to his body, everything reverted to how it had been. This fellow is really trying to play with me. Zhongxian frowned in displeasure. He did not have any true immortal realm soul cultivation techniques with him, so if he wished to make a breakthrough, he would need to have plenty of energy to nourish and cleanse his soul so as to make it purer. Only then would he be able to overcome his current bottleneck. He had thought that he should be able to achieve a breakthrough easily given the massive amount of energy the immortal grass was emanating, but who would have thought that the latter would play hide-and-seek with him? If he cultivated while his soul was within his body, not only would his rate of cultivation be much slower, it might also affect the level of his breakthrough. It seems like Pavilion Master Kuei hasn't been completely honest with me. This 7-star immortal grass isn't just an ordinary herb that nourishes one's soul, Zhongxian thought. Putting aside his cultivation for the time being, he walked over to the immortal grass. Bending his knees, he reached out to touch the immortal grass, hoping to use the Library of Heaven's path to confirm the latter's attributes and properties. However, with a light sway, the immortal grass suddenly vanished right before his eyes. Before he knew it, it suddenly appeared several dozen meters away. What? Zhongxian was stunned. He had never thought that the immortal grass would actually be able to run away on its own. Thus, he walked over once more and reached out to touch it. Who? The immortal grass bolted off to the opposite end of the courtyard. It was as if his touch was poisonous, so it was desperately trying to avoid him. "So, you want to play? Interesting," Zhongxian murmured with a smile. Of course, it could not possibly be that easy to deal with a heavenly high immortal tier medicinal herb. He would have to win it over first. "Let's see where you can escape to." Taking a deep breath, Zhongxian made his move. He rushed over to grab it, but all of a sudden, blurry shadows flashed across his eyes. The 7-colored leaves abruptly extended through the ground and rose from beneath his feet, wrapping thick vines around his wrists and ankles. Hula! Caught off guard, Zhongxian was raised upside down into the air. Chapter 2030 Eating the Immortal Grass. In the Celestial Dipper Palace, the first elder looked at Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao and said, "Even though the 7-star immortal grass is the treasure of our sect, it has quite an eccentric temperament. It doesn't even pay much heed to you even though you are the head of our 7-star pavilion. Is it possible that it will make a move on Elder Liu?" The 7-star immortal grass had been around since the founding of the sect, and it had lived for several thousand years since then. Its long life had resulted in its haughty personality, such that it would not show much respect even toward the sect leader of each generation. Considering how young Elder Liu was, as well as the fact that his cultivation was only at the heavenly true immortal realm, would the immortal grass make things difficult for him? It's not as if you have never interacted with the immortal grass before. It's just a little playful. After it's had its fun, it will release its soul-nurturing energy. Pavilion Master Kuei chuckled softly. Considering Elder Liu's achievements despite his young age, it's inevitable that he might get a little complacent. Facing a small hiccup here and there will be good for building his character, and it will be helpful for tempering his soul. "I see," the first elder nodded slowly in agreement. However, Elder Hong Wu was still a little worried about the matter. "I don't think that there's too much of a problem for the immortal grass to tease Elder Liu. What I am afraid of is that Elder Liu might destroy the immortal grass out of rage. That would really be a catastrophe." Even though it had not been long since he met this young man, he knew that the other party was not an easy character to deal with. Otherwise, the other party would not have defeated all of them so easily back in the ethereal hall. Rest assured. The 7-star immortal grass has lived for several thousand years, and it resides in the area where the energies in the 7-star pavilion converge. Even I would be unable to capture it, let alone the heavenly true immortal realm Elder Liu. In the entire Forsaken Continent, other than Hall Master Kong, I can think of no other person who possesses the capability to harm the immortal grass. Pavilion Master Kuei stroked his beard as he spoke. The 7-star pavilion consisted of 7 major palaces, and these palaces occupied corresponded to the positions of the 7 stars. The center of the 7 stars was the Polaris, which corresponded to the courtyard where the immortal grass resided. While the immortal grass had been nourishing everyone in the 7-star palace, at the same time, the spirit, mind, and psyche of everyone in the 7-star palace were nourishing it as well. This was also how a mere plant like itself was able to reach heavenly high immortal tier. Hearing those words, Elder Hong Wu heaved a sigh of relief. If even a semi-divinity realm expert like the Pavilion Master was unable to capture the 7-star immortal grass, the others would stand even less of a chance. Nevertheless, just to be safe, I discreetly left a communication jade token that's directly connected to a record crystal inside the courtyard. It will allow me to view what's going on in there in the form of a recording, so if anything does happen, we'll be able to intervene right away, Pavilion Master Kuei said with a chuckle. With a flick of his wrist, he took out a record crystal and infused his zhenqi into it. Brilliance immediately glowed before a scene rose from the record crystal, revealing the bare outline of the courtyard. However, the scenery was completely cloaked with mist, leaving them still unable to discern what was happening within. "This is an isolation formation?" Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao was stunned. He had done this before in the past, and such a situation had never happened before. For the connection to be abruptly terminated. Could this be Liu Yang's doing? But this should not be. There were many formations cast over the courtyard, such that overlapping an isolation formation on top of it was no easy feat. Even he would have to take a long time studying the existing formations in order to figure out a feasible way to set up another isolation formation there. How did the other party manage to do it? Furthermore, it had not been long since they had left the courtyard. This was way too fast. We won't be able to see what's happening inside with the isolation formation around the area. Most likely, Elder Liu doesn't want us to see him embarrassing himself inside. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao sighed deeply as he moved to keep the record crystal back into his storage ring. However, the first elder suddenly exclaimed with a grave expression at that moment. "Look, the mist is moving." Pavilion Master Kue Xiao glanced over to the recording once more, and indeed, the mist was drifting around. It was apparent that there was some kind of fight occurring behind the veil of mist. Vaguely, they could see cracks appearing on the ground, and the crisp chirping of a young chick could be heard as well. Surges of energy were gushing around the area. It was apparent with a look that it was an extremely intense battle. This. The first elder and Elder Hong Wu glanced at one another in bewilderment. They knew that the immortal grass was playful, they had gone through that themselves. But what was with the chirping of the young chick? Did Elder Liu bring a chick in as well? Seeing the facial expressions of the other two, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao chuckled softly. "Don't worry, the immortal grass won't go so far as to harm Elder Liu." But before he could finish his words, the mist suddenly parted slightly, revealing the scene within to them. With a napkin placed neatly before his chest, a young man was seated on the ground with a pair of chopsticks in his hands. There was a campfire and a metal pot in front of him. The water in the metal pot was already boiling, and within the water, they could see a stalk of 7-star immortal grass turning completely red due to the high heat. It was being cooked. The 7-star immortal grass struggled with all its might, trying to escape from the pot, but a little yellow chick floating amid the boiling water as well would peck it down every time it tried something. Eventually, the immortal grass simply stopped struggling at all. As if cooked seaweed, it drifted around the pot lifelessly. It was a surprisingly sad sight. The young man flicked his wrist and took out a small bowl. In there, he added sesame oil, salt, chili paste, peanuts, vinegar, and a few other seasonings before mixing them well. After that, he plucked out a leaf from the immortal grass, dipped it into his specially crafted homemade sauce, and swallowed it with gusto. A moment of silence lingered among Pavilion Master Kue and the others as their eyes slowly widened into bulging circles. "No, this won't do, quick, we need to save the immortal grass." It took a while before they finally recovered from their shock, and they quickly rushed out of the hall. In the blink of an eye, they arrived back at the courtyard. There, they saw the furiously sweating Zhong Xian. "You came just in time. Come, join me. It doesn't taste too bad." Zhong Xian stood up and passed them a pair of chopsticks warmly. "You." Pavilion Master Kue Xiao walked straight over to the hot pot to fish the immortal grass out from the boiling water. The immortal grass looked incredibly withered, not moving in the least. Of its initial 7 leaves, 4 of them had been plucked off. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao quickly placed it down gently before checking its vitals. After confirming that it was not dead yet, he heaved a sigh of relief. Unable to tolerate this, he turned to Zhong Xian and said, "Elder Liu, the 7-star immortal grass is the treasure of our 7-star pavilion. How could you eat it? I brought you here in order to absorb the energy emanated by the immortal grass so that you could nourish your soul, but you ended up cooking it as if you are in a hot pot store. More importantly, it should have been extremely difficult for anyone to capture the 7-star immortal grass. Not even Pavilion Master Kue Xiao himself was certain he could capture it. How did the other party manage to put it into the pot? Furthermore, the temperature of boiling water wouldn't even harm a true immortal. How did he manage to cook the heavenly high immortal tier immortal grass? I tried to absorb its energy to nourish my soul, but it simply wouldn't allow me to. Not only that, it even made a move on me. I tried warning it several times, but it wouldn't listen. So, I had no choice but to cook and eat it," Zhong Xian said. If not for little chick pecking on it, honestly, Zhong Xian was not entirely confident that he would have been a match for it. In fact, the suggestion to cook it and eat it had come from little chick as well. If he simply absorbed the 7-star immortal grass energy, while he would be able to achieve a breakthrough, it would take quite a long time. Eating it would be far more efficient. And just as little chick had said, with the first leaf he ate, His soul cultivation had successfully made a breakthrough to the true immortal realm. Following which, he had eaten 3 more leaves, and that had advanced his soul cultivation all the way to the heavenly true immortal realm. To put it in other words, as long as he could harmonize his soul energy and zhenqi impeccably, he would be ready to push for a breakthrough to the high immortal realm. On the other hand, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao was frenzied. You knew how invaluable the 7-star immortal grass is, but you still cooked it and ate it. Do you really have nothing you would like to say for yourself? As the treasure of the 7-star pavilion, generations of pavilion masters had treated the 7-star immortal grass with utmost respect, not daring to offend it. Yet, this fellow had actually tucked into it. Did he not feel guilty at all? Anything that I would like to say for myself? Zhongxian pondered for a moment before nodding. Well, it's not too bad. It tastes like seaweed, but the texture is more QQ. 1. Pavilion Master Kuei was speechless. Rest assured. Since I have eaten it, I'll surely restore its vitality, Zhongxian said with a smile. He knew what Pavilion Master Kuei was worried about. He had just been teasing them when he spoke about the flavors earlier, but thinking back, it might not have been a very funny joke for them given the current situation. He first stowed the swimming little chick back into his tamed beast sack before carrying the entire pot of boiling water over to the 7-star immortal grass. TSLA. He poured the water on the immortal grass. The withered immortal grass was not scalded by the hot water. Instead, it seemed to have absorbed some sort of mystical power that caused its withered leaves to unfurl themselves once more. The 4 eaten leaves also began budding, and it seemed like they would grow back anytime soon. Such a sight made Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao, the first elder, and the others stunned. Was it possible for an immortal grass of the tier of the 7-star immortal grass to grow back so quickly after being eaten? It'll take roughly a month before it fully grows back, Zhongxian said. In truth, this immortal grass is rather similar to sweet potatoes. Even after it's harvested and eaten, it can be regrown. Since that's the case, it would be a waste not to eat it. He had not been sure about the attributes of the immortal grass initially, but after touching it, through the library of Heaven's Path, all of its secrets were unveiled before him. Even though the 7-star immortal grass was incredibly haughty, ultimately, it was just another medicinal herb. The fundamental purpose of a medicinal herb was to be eaten. Usually, if 4 of its leaves were eaten, it would take at least 100 years for it to grow back. However, through the nourishment of the chicken soup broiled using little chick, most of its damage could be repaired within a few breaths. This. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao's lips twitched. Now that he thought about it, he remembered his predecessor telling him that the 7-star immortal grass could be eaten. However, it had been so long since anyone had managed to capture it that such a thing had been erased from everyone's mind. A semi-divinity realm expert like him was unable to do anything to the 7-star immortal grass, but this true immortal realm young man actually managed to capture it and boil it in a pot of soup. It was hard to believe such a thing had happened even when he witnessed it with his own eyes. Knowing that the immortal grass was fine, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao assessed the young man before him curiously and asked, "Elder Liu, may I ask how effective the immortal grass is?" "It's not too bad. My soul has been nourished to a satisfactory level," Zhongxian replied. "That's good. It's already dawn, let's set off now, shall we?" Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao asked. Since the young man had received what he wanted, there was not much point remaining there anymore. After all the shocks they had been through, the sun had already risen. Zhongxian nodded quietly in response. There were 8 aerial immortal beasts prepared specifically for this journey. All 8 of them were pulling a massive carriage that was still extremely spacious even after the entire group got into it. Peering through the windows, Zhongxian noted that the speed of the carriage was even faster than that of the serpentine dragon. After confirming that the general direction was indeed headed to the Sea of Exiled Stars, he turned his attention away from this matter and began cultivating. Over the next 2 days, he successfully reinforced his soul cultivation. "It's about time for me to try pushing for a breakthrough to high immortal realm," Zhongxian thought as he took out the breakthrough pill that he had received from Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao. His zhenqi, physical body, and soul cultivation had all reached the heavenly true immortal realm, so he was literally prepared in body and in soul. As long as he could reach the high immortal realm, he would finally have the power to protect himself in the azure. Even if he came under the assault of semi-divinity realm experts from the Hall of Gods, he would not be utterly powerless anymore. 1. QQ is a Taiwanese term that describes the texture of soft yet chewy food, such as the texture of noodle and glutinous rice balls. Basically, the food should be soft but still offer some resistance to the bite. Chapter 2031 High Immortal Realm. The only caveat with the current plan was that he had not compiled a perfect High Immortal Realm Heaven's Path Divine Art. He also was not sure if he would be able to do so in the near future. I can't afford to wait that long anymore. As his cultivation progressed, it was only natural that the number of cultivation technique manuals that he had would reduce. He could not possibly stop cultivating just because he was unable to compile a perfected Heaven's Path Divine Art, right? It was time for him to overcome his fears. Besides, he had also advanced through the realms of ancient sage back when he was on the Master-Teacher continent, even though he had not managed to compile the corresponding Heaven's Path Divine Arts. Perfection or safety, this was the trade-off that he had to make at this moment. Currently, he viewed the latter as a more urgent need. If he did not raise his cultivation fast enough, disaster would soon befall him. He did not think that he would be able to avoid the Hall of Gods for too long. I should start. Having made up his mind, Zhongxian uncorked the jade bottle and swallowed the breakthrough pill inside of it. Boom! The rich energy harnessed within the pill gushed through his entire body, leaving him feeling as if a flame had been ignited within his body. He focused his attention on concentrating all his zhenqi toward overcoming the bottleneck that hindered his path to becoming a high immortal. The Heaven's Path Divine Art was like a key to the gate between each cultivation realm. As long as he acquired this key, no matter how heavy the gates were, he would be able to open them with ease. However, since he did not have the key with him right now, he had no choice but to crush the gate with brute strength. As long as he could gather sufficient energy to build up enough momentum, he would be able to reach the high immortal realm. Wang! A resounding reverberation echoed as zhenqi gushed forward to break down the wall. Blood immediately spurted out from Zhongxian's lips. It's more resilient than I thought. He had thought that it should not be too difficult for him to reach the high immortal realm with his current cultivation, but the bottleneck was like a secure metal vault. No matter how hard he charged into it, it simply would not budge. Are you trying to achieve a breakthrough via brute strength? Noticing what Zhongxian was trying to do, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao and the others were appalled. The high immortal realm was one of the hardest obstacles for a cultivator to overcome on the Forsaken Continent. There were many experts who had devoted their lives to uncovering tricks and methods to overcome this bottleneck. Yet, this fellow actually wanted to overcome it with brute strength. This was as good as trying to knock down a 100-meter-thick wall on a steed. How could it be possible? If it was possible to do it through brute strength, those cultivators stuck at the heavenly true immortal realm would not have been at such a loss as to what they could do. Meanwhile, Zhongxian realized that his attempts were not working well, so he turned to the crowd and asked, "Do you, by any chance, have any premier immortal pills?" Superior immortal pills were insufficient for him to build up enough momentum to achieve a breakthrough to the high immortal realm. If he wished to succeed, he would need something even more potent. "I have 2 of them," Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said as he took out a jade bottle. There were not many premier immortal pills on the Forsaken Continent. Even as the head of the richest organization in this world, he did not have many of them. "I'll repay the favor to you after we arrive at the Sea of Exiled Stars," Zhongxian said as he took the jade bottle without any reservations. He knew that these 2 premier immortal pills would play a vital role to him in achieving a breakthrough. Without any hesitation, he took out the 2 pills and popped them into his mouth. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao's eyelids twitched in shock. Even a semi-divinity realm expert like him would take at least 3 days to assimilate the energy in a premier immortal pill, but the young man before him, a heavenly true immortal, actually swallowed 2 of them at once. Was he not afraid of blowing up? Pavilion Master Kue Xiao walked over to Zhongxian and ordered the others, "Everyone, focus your attention and keep a close lookout. Such a forceful breakthrough came with huge risks. They would have to keep a close lookout so that they could intervene in time if the young man's cultivation was about to go berserk. The first elder, Elder Hongwu, and the others quickly gathered around. This young man before them was the hope of the seven-star pavilion. Be it sect leader Zhongxian or hall master Zheng Yang, the likes of them could not possibly be a match for this monstrous genius. Thus, they were willing to give their all to protect him. Boom! As the two premier immortal pills melted, Zhongxian felt a tremendous amount of energy flooding through his meridians. If the breakthrough pill had generated a river within his body, after consuming the two pills, the river had evolved into a massive tsunami that charged right toward the resilient gates of high immortality. Boom, boom, boom. With each attempt to crush the gates, Zhongxian would suffer significant damage due to the recoil. Blood was flowing from his nose, mouth, and ears, but even after several tries, the gate still refused to open. He had sustained significant injuries, and his body was on the verge of collapsing. Thus, he quickly took out a jade bottle filled with the gourd's bathwater, and only then did he feel himself recovering a bit. He gritted his teeth tightly together as a determined glint shone in his eyes. Who? With a whip of his hand, he took out several more jade bottles. An incredible amount of energy was emanating from these bottles. Those bottles contained the blood essence of the heavenly high immortals from the Hall of Gods. Prior to forging the corpses of those heavenly high immortals into soulless metal humanoids, he had gathered their blood essences and stored them safely in jade bottles. These blood essences harnessed the power of those heavenly high immortals, so they were overflowing with energy. Peng! Uncorking the jade bottles, the blood essences quickly morphed into mist before flowing into his body through his acupoints. A crimson glow appeared on the surface of Zhongxian's skin, and his body was starting to show signs of drying up. It seemed like he had gathered so much energy within him that the energies accumulated within his body were trying to devour him instead. Humph! With a cold harumph, Zhongxian bore the tearing pain and drove his true immortal realm heaven's path divine art to its limits. He forcefully took control of the energies rampaging within his body and channeled them toward the gates once more. Jia! With the sheer amount of energies gathered, the gate began to waver. It's working. Zhongxian's eyes lit up. He quickly gathered the energies back together to make one attempt after another. To be honest, the bottleneck to the high immortal realm was much more terrifying than he had thought. He had gathered so much energy within on him that he was starting to lose control even with the Heaven's Path divine art. He had thought that he would be able to achieve a breakthrough easily after going so far, but even after so many attempts, it still was not fully torn down yet. This was probably the greatest hurdle that he had faced in his cultivation so far. It'll be difficult for him to achieve a breakthrough in the future if he doesn't succeed the first time. We must lend him a hand. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao ordered. He placed his hand on Zhongxian's back and infused a surge of pure energy right into the latter's body. He had seen plenty of geniuses who had anxiously rushed to push for a breakthrough to the high immortal realm only to end in failure. Most of them would try again later in their lives, but the difficulty was really on a whole new level then, such that most of them ended up never managing to make a breakthrough. Once the energies within the young man's body calmed down, it would be hard for him to achieve a breakthrough in the future. If so, their hopes at the Azure Bridge would be shattered. Thus, even if they had to gather the strength of everyone present, they needed to ensure that the young man was successful in his breakthrough. Hearing those words, the first elder and the others quickly gathered around. Tzzzzzzzz. They channeled their zhunqi into Zhongxian's body, and their zhunqi was immediately assimilated into the roaring tsunami of energies within the latter's body, enhancing its might and momentum. You have my gratitude. Zhongxian did not think that they would go so far to help him achieve a breakthrough to the high immortal realm, and he could not help clenching his fists tightly in agitation. He swiftly asserted his control over the augmented tsunami of energies and channeled it toward the gates once more. Jeji. The gate wavered even more. With the assistance of those experts, Zhongxian could feel his bottleneck loosening significantly. However, the toll of having so many different energies on his body was also starting to show as well. Cracks were starting to surface on his body, signaling that he was on the verge of suffering a physical breakdown. Zhongxian immediately swallowed several more bottles of Gourd's bathwater before focusing his attention back on his breakthrough. Boom! After innumerable attempts, the gates were finally forced open, allowing the surge of energies to burst through. As those energies quickly circulated around his body, Zhongxian's aura surged. High Immortal Realm, reached. With the aid of the breakthrough pill, High Immortal Realm Blood Essence, Premier Immortal Pills, and Junqi from Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao and the others, he had finally succeeded. Gu 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 gu. The Junqi within his body swiftly condensed together to become even more concentrated and powerful. As this concentrated Junqi flowed through his body, the heavy injuries that he had sustained in the midst of the breakthrough swiftly healed up. At the same time, his soul and body were being nourished as well. What pure Junqi this is! As energy flowed through his body, Zhongxian felt vigor like he had never experienced before. It was no wonder why high immortals were so much more respected than true immortals. The strength that he wielded was at least several times stronger than before. As he did not have any more premier immortal pills, he could only drink more blood essences from the heavenly high immortals in order to sustain his breakthrough. It took roughly a dozen bottles before his Junqi finally settled down. While he did manage to reach the high immortal realm, due to the lack of the corresponding Heaven's Path divine art, he was unable to progress any further than that at the moment. Nevertheless, even though he was only at the lesser high immortal realm, the strength that he wielded was not something that should be underestimated. If he was faced with those three heavenly high immortals who had made an attempt on his life once more, even without relying on any external help or trickery, he would still be able to easily smack them to death. Barely after Zhongxian's cultivation settled down, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao's voice sounded. It's a relief that everything went well. Zhongxian raised his head and saw the elders who had helped him earlier looking at him with pale faces. The Junqi in their bodies was on the verge of depleting entirely. I am extremely grateful to all of you for your help. Zhongxian bowed deeply. If not for their unreserved assistance in devoting their Junqi for his use, there was no way he would have been able to achieve a breakthrough to the heavenly high immortal realm. He quickly passed a bottle of Gourd's bathwater to each of them and said, "Drink it. It'll heal your injuries." The crowd accepted the bottles and quickly drank the water. A tinge of redness quickly returned to their pale faces. The swift depletion of energy had resulted in some hidden traumas in their bodies, and those injuries would often prove difficult to recover from. However, the Gourd's bathwater had helped them recover from them in an instant. They were still feeble from the lack of energy, but they were still able to recover quickly. This medicine. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao and the others were bewildered. The water that they had just drunk was more effective than any recovery medicines that they had consumed. It's a recovery medicine I have specially concocted. Drink it if you sustain any difficult injuries, Zhongxian said as he took out several more bottles of the Gourd's bathwater and distributed it among the crowd. Considering how far they had gone to help him, he would not be stingy with them. Following that, as the crowd from the 7-star pavilion consumed all kinds of pills to recover their energy, Zhongxian also sat down to reinforce his cultivation. It took 3 days for everyone else to recover completely from their previous exertion. At the same time, Zhongxian also managed to reinforce his lesser high immortal realm cultivation. Is there no cultivation ordeal for achieving a breakthrough to the high immortal realm? Zhongxian asked curiously. On the master-teacher continent, those whose cultivation had reached St. 5 Dan would draw in a cultivation ordeal. It was hard to imagine there would be no cultivation ordeal for reaching the high immortal realm. The Forsaken Continent is the land that the gods have abandoned. Even though there are no longer any gods here, it's still an extremely powerful dimension. High immortals aren't powerful enough to sway the laws of the world yet, so the heavens won't send heavenly retribution upon them, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao said. The only case where one will face a cultivation ordeal is probably when one attempts to make a breakthrough to become a real god. Become a real god. As exiles, we are unqualified to become real gods. If we attempted to make a breakthrough, it would immediately draw backlash from the Hall of Gods. The heavens would also feel threatened by the act and invoke heavenly retribution upon the cultivator. A lightning tribulation would be the least of one's worries. There would be heavenly flames and heavenly obliteration as well. There are many talented individuals on the Forsaken Continent who have attempted a breakthrough, only to lose their lives tragically in the end, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said with a bitter smile. Thus, the strongest realm on the Forsaken Continent is semidivinity. Semidivinity is ultimately just a pseudo-god, an existence that comes nowhere close in comparison to a real god. Besides, one needs to tap into the powers of the Hall of Gods in order to reach semidivinity. This is not a feat that one can achieve with sheer talent. Chapter 2032 The Secrets of Semidivinity. Tap into the powers of the Hall of Gods. Zhong Xian asked in confusion. To become a god, one must acquire the acknowledgement of the gods, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao explained. This is also why those of the six sects struggle so hard to enter the Hall of Gods to snatch the god character. Even just half a god character represents the qualification and possibility to reach the semidivinity realm. Zhong Xian nodded in realization. It was no wonder those of the six sects were so intent on snatching the god character. He had thought that it was just because they were vain and wanted to use the character in their names, but who would have thought that it was the foundation to ascend to greater heights? At the same time, he realized why he had managed to become the Hall Master and Elder of the Myriad Beasts Hall and Ascendant Cloudsword Pavilion respectively so easily. Most likely, they were entrusting their hopes to him. If he successfully snatched a god character from the Hall of Gods, those who were stuck at Heavenly High Immortal would finally be able to make a breakthrough to greater heights. Their lifespan and fighting prowess would be greatly increased. I heard that the Ascendant Cloudsword Pavilion has only acquired half a character, which is why they can only use it on the Sword God Hall instead of in their sect's name, Zhong Xian said contemplatively. Does this mean that the Ascendant Cloudsword Pavilion possesses the means for one to achieve a breakthrough to the semidivinity realm, too? They do, but the difficulty is much greater. Throughout the entire Forsaken Continent, the only power that has managed to acquire an entire god character is the Ethereal Hall. In other words, it's likely that they have the greatest number of semidivinity realm experts. This is also why none of the six sects dare to oppose it, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao explained. Zhong Xian nodded in realization. Each of the six sects had their own defined territories, and the other sects would be unable to interfere in their affairs. On the other hand, the Ethereal Hall was a power that wielded influence across the entire Azure. It turned out that this single god character was the key. If it's impossible to achieve a breakthrough without the god character. Pardon me for asking this, but it seems like your cultivation has long reached the semidivinity realm. How is that? Zhong Xian asked in bewilderment. All three heads of the six sects that he had met thus far were semidivinity realm experts. If it was impossible to make a breakthrough without that character, how did they manage to reach their current realm? This is why we looked for you, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said with a smile. Oh! You might have heard about how the Azure Bridge leading to the Hall of Gods descends every 100 years. Those on the Forsaken Continent are able to reach the Hall of Gods via this bridge and possibly snatch the god character. For each battle one can absorb a sliver of aura of divinity, which is the key to achieving a breakthrough to the semidivinity realm. I was one of the challengers 100 years ago, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said. One can absorb a sliver of aura of divinity by winning a battle. Then what if one loses a battle? Those who lose their battles usually lose their lives as well. Lose their lives? Zhong Xian was astonished. So, this means that each of the current heads of the six sects have won a match. Han Jianqiu, Qin Yuan, and Kue Xiao were all semidivinity realm experts. Even though he had not met the leaders of the three remaining sects, it was likely that they were not too weak. Did they manage to win their battles as well? Honestly, this was a little hard for him to believe. He had fought with the experts of the Hall of Gods before, and he knew just how frightening they were. It was no exaggeration to say that they were nigh invincible in their power class. Even Han Jianqiu and Kue Xiao would not stand much of a chance against them. It might still be possible for the two of them to win out of sheer luck, but it felt like too much of a coincidence for all six heads of the six sects to win their battles. The heads of the six sects did win a match each against the warriors of the Hall of Gods, But they aren't from the same batch of challengers. Take Du Qingyuan from Starchaser Palace for example. She reached the semi-divinity realm 1,000 years ago. There have been quite a few challengers from Starchaser Palace in the years since, but none of them have managed to survive the battle. 1,000 years ago? Zhong Xian narrowed his eyes in astonishment. Are semi-divinity realm experts able to live that long? Most high immortals could only live up to 300 years, but Du Qingyuan had actually reached the semi-divinity realm 1,000 years ago. Did this not mean that she had lived for a whole 1,000 years? That would be equivalent to 10,000 years on the Master-Teacher continent. This was really frightening. Usually, semi-divinity realm experts can only live for 500 years at most, but those from Starchaser Palace are a little unique in terms of their constitution. They enjoy a far greater lifespan than the rest of us. Despite that, it's clear that Du Qingyuan is swiftly approaching her end. It's likely that she only has a few more years ahead of her. Like her, Hall Master Qin Yuan is also reaching the end of his lifespan, Pavilion Master Kuei said with a shake of his head. Thus, they hope that a new semi-divinity will appear in their sects this time around. Otherwise, the fragile balance of power maintained among the 6 sects will shake. Zhong Xian nodded slowly in agreement. He could finally see why Qin Yuan had unhesitatingly passed down the position of Hall Master to him. With his lifespan coming to an end, Qin Yuan could only entrust his hopes to him and pray that he would be able to clear the Azure Bridge and successfully become a semi-divinity expert, thus becoming a pillar to prop up the Myriad Beasts Hall for the next 500 years. Although the situation among the 6 sects was relatively peaceful, they knew that this would swiftly change as soon as one of them displayed any sign of weakness. Even if the other sects did not make a move on them, they would lose their resources and talents to the other powers. As time went by, they would eventually become a second-tier power, and their prestige would become a thing of the past. Zhong Xian suddenly recalled something. Pavilion Master Kuei, you mentioned earlier that there will be a duel with others from the 6 sects, and there will be no danger. May I know what that means? Thinking back, it was weird that Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao had asked him to participate in a duel against the other powers instead of challenging the Azure Bridge. After all, the reason Pavilion Master Kuei wanted him to join the 7-star Pavilion was likely because he wanted him to become the 7-star Pavilion's representative on the Azure Bridge. Weren't you wondering earlier why there were semi-divinity realm experts in all of the 6 sects? Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao said. There are 5 warriors guarding the Azure Bridge. If you can achieve victory in the duel among the 6 sects, you will be able to become the leader of the expedition. If so, you will be entitled to leave the other 5 members to deal with the 5 warriors while you enter the Hall of Gods right away. In other words, you will have won a battle even without having to fight. Through that, you will have effectively gained the qualification to make a breakthrough to the semi-divinity realm. The expedition leader will be able to enter the Hall of Gods without fighting at all? Wait a moment, what happens to the other 5 members who have to fight against the warriors of the Hall of Gods? Zhong Xian asked. Chances are that they would lose their lives, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao said grimly. In view of this, if all the disciples are equally powerful, the duel will be skipped. The position of the expedition leader will be selected through a specific sequence. It's the Ascendant Cloud Sword Pavilion's turn to become the expedition leader this time, and it will be the Myriad Beasts Hall's turn the next time around, and after that will be our 7-star Pavilion's turn. This arrangement maintains the balance of power among the 6 sects. On top of that, it also unites us together against the Hall of Gods. Of course, there are cases where there's a great disparity in power. If so, the sequence will be disrupted. This is to allow the genius to conserve his strength in the earlier stages and save his energy for snatching the God character from the Hall of Gods. There are also extreme cases like in Hall Master Kong's generation. Due to his overwhelming strength, even if he didn't take on the position of the expedition leader, he would still have been able to clear the Azure Bridge and enter the Hall of Gods with ease. Such circumstances often give rise to more semi-divinity realm experts. Even if all 6 don't succeed, there will still be at least 2 or 3 of them. Zhong Xian nodded. Even if they alternated the expedition leader each and every time, due to the lifespan of a semi-divinity realm expert being only 500 years, there would be a period of time where a sect would be without a semi-divinity realm expert. That would mean a period of vulnerability for the sect, and things could easily go wrong during that time. Thus, there was still a need for them to compete over the position of the expedition leader despite the current arrangements. This was why those from the sects bestowed him with the position of an elder and willingly provided him with all kinds of resources. Clearly, they wanted him to vie for the position of expedition leader in their stead. As long as there was someone to guard their sect, everything else was of secondary importance. After finishing his piece, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao looked at Zhongxian expectantly. Elder Liu, you must give it your all. We'll also be providing you with whatever support you require to reach the heavenly high immortal realm as soon as possible. Even when he challenged the young man with his cultivation suppressed to the true immortal realm, the latter was able to defeat him without the slightest hint of exhaustion. Most likely, he should be able to crush the candidates from the other sects with ease. It was a done deal for him to reach the semi-divinity realm. He might even be the ray of hope for them to snatch a god character for their sect. If so, the continued prosperity of their 7-star pavilion would be ensured. Rest assured. Zhongxian nodded. If not for the other party sacrificing themselves for him, he would not have been able to achieve a breakthrough and become a high immortal. This favor was more than enough for him to put his all toward helping them. Having understood the situation, Zhongxian turned his attention back to reinforcing his cultivation. Meanwhile, the aerial immortal beast sped ahead, and in less than half a day, a massive ocean came into sight. We have finally arrived at the Sea of Exiled Stars. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao stood up. Zhongxian also walked over to the window to take a look. He could see deep blue water beneath him. Looking into the distance, it felt like the ocean was fusing together with the sky, and they were currently traversing in a mystical space that existed between the sky and the ocean. Traveling alongside them were all kinds of fish and birds, painting an incredibly beautiful sight. So, this is the Sea of Exiled Stars. Zhongxian was amazed. To think that the experts of the Forsaken Continent were unwilling to step foot in such a beautiful world. Indeed. At nighttime, the ocean beneath will look as if stars have fallen into it, inducing the urge to chase after them. Sometimes, if you travel fast enough, you might even be able to catch up with them. This is probably the reason behind the name of Starchaser Palace, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said. But nature tends to manifest danger amid beauty. The only reason we haven't been attacked yet is because we are currently on a carriage carrying the insignia of the 7-star pavilion, and it's being pulled by many high immortal realm beasts. Ordinary cultivators would never be able to make it this far. Most of them would have already encountered innumerable dangers, so how could they be in the mood to enjoy the beauty? I see, Zhongxian replied deeply. It would be foolish to underestimate what lay beneath the surface of calm waters. It was likely that there were countless powerful beasts hiding within the Sea of Exiled Stars. Those who dared step into their territory recklessly would find themselves in great danger. Watching as the immortal beasts around him slowly venturing into the depths of the Sea of Exiled Stars, Zhongxian could not help but ask, where is Starchaser Palace? At the center of the ocean, there's a massive island known as Starchaser Island. Starchaser Palace and the indigenous population of the Forsaken Continent all reside there, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao explained. The immortal beasts continued ahead. After advancing roughly 2,000 li, Zhongxian could see a lot of beasts prowling beneath them in the ocean, seemingly contemplating launching an assault. If not for Pavilion Master Kue Xiao releasing his aura as a semi-divinity realm expert to deter them, it was likely that some immortal beasts would have already made a move on them. It was no wonder no one dared to approach this area. Putting aside the threat from the indigenous population, just these immortal beasts were enough to make any cultivator stop in their footsteps. Around half a day later, a massive island finally came into view. It was several thousand li in width, and there was a humongous, bustling city located at its center. From afar, one could feel a unique aura shrouding the city, forming some sort of force field that deterred others from approaching. This aura feels a little familiar. Zhongxian was a little taken aback. He was certain that he had felt this unique force field somewhere before. Thus, He activated his eye of insight to take a closer look. Boom! His eyes narrowed his astonishment as his body tensed in agitation. Isn't this the aura from the otherworldly demonic tribe? Chapter 2033 Semidivinity Realm B's TA familiar energy was being emanated by that massive island. It was the killing intent unique to the otherworldly demonic tribe. The reason he did not notice it immediately was because the killing intent lost its violent nature when mixed with the mercury-like spiritual energy of the azure, making it feel warm. In any case, the presence of the killing intent meant that there were otherworldly demons on the island. Could the indigenous population that Pavilion Master Kue Xiao had spoken about refer to them? That would explain the origin of the otherworldly demons. They must have somehow slipped into the Master-Teacher continent by breaching the dimension barrier, thus bringing a huge catastrophe upon the lifeforms there. With such thought in mind, Zhongxian quickly took a closer look at the figures walking around the massive city, but what he saw simply left him even more bewildered. They were all roughly the size of ordinary humans, and there was nothing odd about them. They did not have the bloodthirsty and savage presence of otherworldly demons. Could his senses have been off? Back when I was in the Kungsu domain, the otherworldly demons that were exposed to the mercury-like spiritual energy lost their bloodthirsty and violent nature. This is probably the cause of the anomaly, Zhongxian thought. Ancient sage Yang Qing and the others had done experiments on the otherworldly demonic tribe to test out their tolerance to the mercury-like spiritual energy, and they had proved that those who managed to withstand the ordeal would gain properties similar to those of ordinary humans. Starchaser Palace is located at the very center of the island. If we fly in directly, we might end up sparking a conflict, so we'll get off just ahead, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao told Zhongxian. The aerial immortal beast pulled the carriage down, and soon, they landed on a platform. As soon as they landed, a group of metal-armored guards marched over. Elder Hong Wu walked over and passed his token over. The guards took a look at the token before opening a path ahead. With a sharp glint in his eyes, Zhongxian assessed the two guards in front of him carefully. Just as he had guessed, they were indeed otherworldly demons who had absorbed the mercury-like spiritual energy. Furthermore, they dressed the same as the deities from the heavens who had descended to the Master-Teacher continent. Could they be on the receiving end of the rituals conducted by the otherworldly demonic tribe on the Master-Teacher continent? If that was the case, could the female deity who had taken Sovereign Chen Yong away and claimed that she knew of Luo Ruoxin's whereabouts possibly be an expert from Starchaser Palace? It seemed like he would have to look into this matter then. Our 7-star pavilion has a branch here. Elder Liu, I'll take you there before helping you gather the items you require to achieve a breakthrough to the heavenly high immortal realm, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said. Zhongxian nodded in response. The group quickly made their way down the streets. The city was extremely large, boasting a scale greater even than that of Biyuan City. If Zhongxian had not been too confident in his deduction earlier, he was certain of it now that he was making his way through the streets. Those living here on Starchaser Island were all otherworldly demons. Their bloodthirst and savagery had been neutralized by the mercury-like spiritual energy, but they remained a deeply belligerent race. As such, they were extremely hostile toward outsiders. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao noticed that Zhongxian was looking around, so he sent a telepathic message over. Even though we have a branch here, we are still deemed as outsiders. We do conduct trade with them, but we don't have any close ties in the city. We also don't intend to put too much focus on building relations here, or else it might just backfire on us. Zhongxian could relate to those words. It was not that the otherworldly demons were heartless creatures that only knew of slaughter, but it was a fact that they did have warlike tendencies. If things did not go according to their wishes, their primary instinct was to resort to violence, especially if the other party was not one of their own. As such, it was not easy to forge relations with them. Given so, it would be best to minimize interactions to the bare minimum, or else it would only spell trouble. This was the same for Zhongxian. He was an invincible existence back on the Master-Teacher continent, but over here, there were probably plenty who were able to defeat him. Thus, it was best for him to exercise prudence. After walking for roughly 2 hours, a 7-star pavilion branch came into sight. Just like the headquarters located in Buen City, there were many treasures on display, but their tiers clearly paled in comparison. As soon as they stepped in, the manager immediately received them warmly and prepared the best accommodation for them. Elder Liu, you should rest here for the time being. I'll go and prepare the resources you need, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said. If I may ask, what do you intend to prepare? Zhong Xian asked curiously. Even though Lesser High Immortal and Heavenly High Immortal are cultivation stages in the same realm, it shouldn't be too easy to achieve a breakthrough from one to the other within a short period of time. However, it sounds like you have a way that will allow me to achieve a breakthrough quickly. Achieving a breakthrough to the High Immortal realm was indeed the greatest hurdle, but it was not as if the path ahead would be easy. Achieving a breakthrough from the Lesser High Immortal realm to the Heavenly High Immortal realm was no simple task. If one described the true immortal realm as a pond, the High Immortal realm would be an ocean. It was not too difficult to fill up a pond, but filling up an ocean was truly troublesome. One would have to pay a heavy price if one wanted to hasten the process. Furthermore, what he was lacking at the moment was not just cultivation resources but cultivation technique manuals as well. No matter how large an ocean was, as long as one had a river constantly flowing into it, it was only a matter of time before it filled up. However, he had not even constructed a river to his ocean yet. If he relied on rainwater falling into it, how long would it be before it was filled to the brim? Under such circumstances, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao claimed that he would be able to help him achieve a breakthrough. Thus, Zhong Xian could not help but be curious about what was it that made the other party so confident. It said that a semi-divinity realm beast once appeared in the Sea of Exiled Stars. As long as I am able to capture it and procure its blood and beast core, it shouldn't be too hard for you to reach the Heavenly High Immortal realm. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao revealed his thoughts. A semi-divinity realm beast. Zhong Xian frowned. Didn't you mention that one needs to challenge the Azure Bridge in order to reach the semi-divinity realm? Based on what had been said thus far, it sounded like the slots to challenge the Azure Bridge were dominated by the 6 sects. It did not seem likely that those from the Beast tribe would have an opportunity to slip in. Upon hearing the question, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao quickly looked around him warily before sending a telepathic message over. That's indeed the case, but there has been an exception to that recently. 2 months ago, in a certain part of the Sea of Exiled Stars, the sky has collapsed, and something fell to the ground. It touched the rocks nearby, turning them fiery crimson in color. No flames and weapons were able to harm the rocks at all. If Heavenly High Immortal Realm beasts come into close contact it, they have a chance of axing a breakthrough to the semi-carat divinity realm. Rocks. Could they be godblood rocks? Zhong Xian narrowed his eyes in astonishment as his body tensed up. The other reason he had come to the Sea of Exiled Stars was to investigate the origin of the godblood rock. He had not thought that Pavilion Master Kue Xiao would have known of its existence. If the fact that those rocks had turned into godblood rocks was not conclusive of anything yet, the fact that even immortal beasts were achieving breakthroughs should at least mean something. You know of godblood rocks? Pavilion Master Kue Xiao turned his gaze over. I've heard of them before. Zhong Xian nodded. I read about them in the ancient records. Those rocks are likely godblood rocks. If we can capture those semi-divinity realm beasts and procure their blood and beast cores, even if it isn't sufficient to achieve a breakthrough to the semi-divinity realm, it should at least be enough for you to make a breakthrough to the Heavenly High Immortal realm, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said. As the head of the 7-star pavilion, he possessed vast knowledge about artifacts and treasures. Even without a suitable cultivation technique, the young man should still be able to achieve a breakthrough to the Heavenly High Immortal realm with just the blood and beast cores. It was just that. Hunting down semi-divinity realm beasts was easier said than done. Putting aside their strength, if they attempted to run away, he was not absolutely confident that he would be able to catch up to them. Thus, it was only a possibility. He could not guarantee that it could be done. May I know where those rocks are located? Zhong Xian asked. He found it hard to curb his agitation, especially since this matter concerned Luo Ruoxin. I'm not too sure about the exact location, but I spotted a semi-divinity realm beast not too far away from here. If we want to know the location of the godblood rocks, We'll just have to capture that beast and question it. I intend to head over to test out its strength right now. It would be best if it's weak enough for me to subdue, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said. Even among semi-divinity realm cultivators, there were bound to be differences in their strength. He had reached the semi-divinity realm many years prior. Even though he was not a match for Han Zhenqiu, those beasts that had reached the semi-divinity realm 2 months ago should be well within his means to deal with. As long as those beasts did not possess an overpowered bloodline, he was confident that he would be able to capture them. I'd like to follow you to take a look, Zhongxian said. You wish to come along? Pavilion Master Kue Xiao frowned. Rest assured. Even though my cultivation is only at the lesser high immortal realm at the moment, I do have my own self-preservation means. Even if the other party is stronger than me, I'm confident that I'll be able to get away with ease, Zhongxian assured Pavilion Master Kue. Is that so? Pavilion Master Kue Xiao hesitated for a moment before nodding grimly. All right then. He thought that it would be a good opportunity for this young man to witness the strength of semi-divinity realm experts as well, so that he would be prepared should he face one of them in the future. At the very most, he would just have the latter watch from afar to avoid getting implicated in the fight. Let's head over then, Pavilion Master Kue said. He lowered his cultivation to the heavenly high immortal realm before soaring into the sky. Zhongxian quickly followed him. His cultivation had already reached the high immortal realm, so even if he did not utilize the God Sword intent, he would still be able to maintain his flight. They traveled for roughly 4 hours, till all that was around them was water. The sky had already darkened, and just as Pavilion Master Kue Xiao had said earlier, the starry sky reflected on the clear ocean felt as if the stars had really fallen into the water. These stars drifted across the surface of the water, and it felt as if one could pluck them with the stretch of a hand. The two of them waited patiently for a moment before a small boat drifted over. Pavilion Master Kue. Standing atop the boat was an elder dressed completely in green. Zhongxian took a look at the person before him, and he realized that he was unable to see entirely through the person before him. This elder had reached the heavenly high immortal realm as well, and his strength was likely higher than that of the first elder. How is it? Pavilion Master Kue Xiao asked. The elder clasped his fist and said, Pavilion Master Kue, I placed the item that you gave me into the depths of the ocean a month ago, and it was indeed effective. That semi-divinity realm beast arrived here a few days ago, but it was extremely wary. It hasn't made a move yet. Good. Any beast that is able to survive in the ocean and reach the heavenly high immortal realm is bound to have a sharp sense of danger. Otherwise, it would have died long ago, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said with a smile, not surprised by what he had just heard. The world of the beasts was even cruder than that of humans. A beast would have to survive till the heavenly high immortal realm before having a chance to reach the semi-divinity realm. Those who could live up to that stage were the cream of the crop, possessing an exceptional nose for danger. Otherwise, they would have long fallen prey to other beasts. Pavilion Master Kue, I have already set up the formation. As long as we continue biding our time, it will only be a matter of time before the semi-divinity realm beast strikes. However, I'm not too sure how long it will take, the elder replied. It's fine. Let's head over to take a look, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao replied as he landed on the boat. Zhongxian quickly followed suit. Chapter 2034 Elder Feng Qian Elder Liu. This person here is Elder Feng Qian from our sect. Elder Feng, this young man here is Elder Liu. He'll be representing our sect for the Azure Bridge. Pavilion Master Kue quickly introduced the two to one another. Elder Liu Yang. Elder Feng Qian greeted Zhongxian, but a slight frown could be seen on his forehead. He had thought that the young man beside the Pavilion Master was just a disciple, but who would have thought that he was their candidate for the Azure Bridge? That decision meant that this young man was the top cultivator among those younger than 100. But this young man was only in his early 20s. When had the 7-star pavilion become such a weak organization? Since Elder Liu was chosen as the candidate for the Azure Bridge, I believe that you possess extraordinary abilities. It happens that I have some confusions about my cultivation that I would like to consult you on, Elder Feng said with clasped fists. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao could tell what Elder Feng was trying to do, but he did not interject. As long as Zhongxian survived the Azure Bridge, he was bound to become the next head of the Seven-Star Pavilion. On the other hand, Elder Feng was the closest aide of the Pavilion Master, tasked with the responsibility of carrying out missions in the shadows. For a smooth succession to occur, Zhongxian would need to acquire Elder Feng's approval. Thus, this was a good opportunity for Elder Liu to win Elder Feng over to his side and build authority within the sect. If he could not even win the support of Elder Feng, it would be difficult for him to acquire the support of the entire sect. If so, his seat as the Pavilion Master would not be stable. Feel free to speak, Zhongxian said with a nod. I have cultivated the 7-star palm to 3 dan thus far, but I found that I was unable to advance its mastery any further. May I ask if you have any good suggestions, Elder Liu? Elder Feng asked. The 7-star palm was one of the strongest battle techniques of the 7-star pavilion, and many of the elders had cultivated it before. Before Zhongxian could respond, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao interjected. Isn't the question you have asked far too general? It was understandable that Elder Feng would want to test Zhongxian's right to become the next Pavilion Master, but at the very least, the question should be more detailed. There must have been several hundred reasons for one to be unable to cultivate beyond 3 dan 7-star palm, and Elder Feng did not even bother to specify his own physical condition. How was anyone supposed to answer this question? Not even Pavilion Master Kue Xiao himself would be capable of answering such a question. It's fine, Pavilion Master Kue. Zhongxian raised his hand with a smile. Following which, he turned to Elder Feng and said, if I'm not mistaken, you suffered severe internal injuries that nearly led to your death 81 years ago, right? That's right. Elder Feng nodded as he shot a glance at Pavilion Master Kue Xiao. 81 years ago, he had been chased by his sworn enemies and nearly lost his life. It was Pavilion Master Kue Xiao who had saved him, which had led to him pledging his loyalty to the man. Throughout the years, he had willingly served the 7-star pavilion from the shadows, resolving all possible threats that the sect faced. This matter was one of the confidential secrets of the sect, but who would have thought that Pavilion Master Kue Xiao would trust the young man so much as to tell him this as well? I didn't tell him that. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao's eyebrows shot up in astonishment as well upon hearing Zhongxian's words. This fellow did not even know who you are before meeting you earlier. I also have no idea how he knows about the matter 81 years ago. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao was just about to ask Zhongxian how he knew about that matter when the latter continued speaking. There was no need for anyone to tell me that. It's obvious with just a glance. Back then, through the use of many precious treasures and medicinal herbs, you managed to recover your cultivation. However, the fact is that the injuries you sustained then have left a heavy trauma on your body. When your zhenqi flows through your zhanhai and jiangyong acupoints, you feel a numbing sensation jolting through your body, but these 2 points happen to be crucial for the cultivation of the 7-star palm. Given the blockage of your acupoints and the numbing sensation that hinders your movements, it's a given that you would be unable to cultivate the 4 dan 7-star fis. How did you? Elder Feng widened his eyes in disbelief. Those were his greatest secrets, and he had never mentioned it before Pavilion Master Kue Xiao before. Yet, this young man was able to point them out accurately. Was the young man really able to see through him? Not only so, your left arm has been getting more and more stiff throughout the years, such that it isn't obeying your control anymore, right? Zhongxian asked. Elder Feng's expression darkened. The young man was absolutely correct. He had no idea why, but his left hand had started to suffer sudden bouts of twitching in the last 2 years before turning incredibly stiff. He had tried all kinds of means to resolve this issue, but it was not working at all. He had even consulted many famous physicians, but none of them were able to see through his affliction. How did this young man know about it? The cultivation technique that you started cultivating with is the Emerald Ripple art. It was created by a predecessor when he was suddenly inspired by the currents flowing through the Emerald Ripple Sea. However, after suffering severe injuries 81 years ago, you felt that this cultivation technique wasn't strong enough for you, and it just so happened that your zhenqi had been completely depleted. Thus, you forcefully changed your cultivation technique to the grand solar art. The might of your blows did grow stronger, but your meridians, which have been nourished by the water attribute of the emerald ripple art, were suddenly exposed to the fire attribute of the grand solar art. This is equivalent to casting a bright sun over lush fields without providing it with sufficient water. What do you think would happen? Zhongxian explained with a slight smile. Realizing where he had gone wrong, Elder Feng narrowed his eyes in astonishment. The fields would dry up and crack, thus becoming infertile. The infertility of the lands is the least of your worries. As time goes by, it'll turn into a land of death where no life can thrive, Zhongxian said. Land of death where no life can thrive? Surely it isn't as serious as that. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao frowned. He did know about Elder Feng changing his cultivation technique. In fact, the grand solar art had come from him. Back then, he had tried to convince the latter out of it as he was well aware of the risks of abruptly changing one's cultivation technique, but the latter's mind had been made up. The latter had been willing to go to any lengths as long as he could have his vengeance. Eventually, he had given in and bestowed the latter with the grand solar art. He had paid close attention to Elder Feng's physical condition while the latter cultivated, and things did go wrong on several occasions. However, using his prowess as a semi-divinity and many valuable medicinal herbs, he had made sure to nourish the latter's body properly to resolve the traumas. He had thought that the problem had been resolved, but who could have known that they had not resolved the root of the problem at all? There's a limit to what a human body is able to tolerate. Zhongxian placed his hands behind his back as he spoke. The severe injuries he sustained back then destroyed his vitals, and under such circumstances, he should have been carefully nourishing his body to slowly recover his strength. Yet, he chose to forcefully change his cultivation technique. It's really a blessing that he didn't die on the spot. Even I can hardly imagine the amount of treasures you wasted in order to nourish him. I'll be perfectly honest with you here. The stiffening of your arms is just the initial symptoms. Within 2 years, the stiffness will spread to your legs, and your spine will begin to distort, making it difficult for you to walk. If you fail to resolve it within 5 years, your progressively weakening meridians will eventually collapse under your own strength, causing your cultivation to dissipate. Elder Feng frowned. Is what you said true? It was true that the young man had managed to see through the stiffness in his left arm, but that did not mean that he would unconditionally believe everything that the young man said. After all, this was too shocking. Other than the occasional problems his left arm caused him, he did not feel like his condition was too severe. As such, it was hard for him to believe that his cultivation would dissipate within 5 years. If you don't trust me, we can conduct a quick test, Zhongxian said as he flicked his finger lightly. This was a simple move without any sword qi or zhenqi imbued into it. The finger felt as a light tap on Elder Feng's shoulder, but the latter's entire body immediately jolted. As if someone had petrified him on the spot, his entire body stiffened. Perspiration rained down his cheeks as he instinctively took a step back to retreat. However, before he could even back away, Zhongxian's finger had struck forward once more to tap the center of his chest. This single tap produced a slight jolt in Elder Feng's body, causing him to experience a tearing pain in his meridians. Pu. A mouthful of blood spurted from his lips. The sheer pain caused his wrinkles to sag a little, making it seem as if he had aged a decade in an instant. Zhongxian retracted his finger and asked, "How are you feeling?" I could feel that my meridians are on the verge of shattering." Elder Feng gasped frantically for air as he replied with eyes widened in fright. He looked at the young man before him for a moment before quickly clasping his fist. "Elder Liu, I beseech you to point a way out for me. If you save me, I'll pledge my loyalty to you and serve you as the next pavilion master with my utmost dedication." The fact that the young man was able to peer through his problems and even determine the reasons behind his afflictions showed that the young man was indeed a person of great capabilities. He would have no qualms serving a man like that. The solution is very simple. You just have to cultivate your emerald ripple art once more, Zhongxian said with a light chuckle. Cultivate the emerald ripple art once more? How is that possible? The one who had spoken this time around was not Elder Feng but Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao. He found Zhong Xian's words incomprehensible. Putting aside the fragile state of Elder Feng's meridians, if the latter cultivated the emerald ripple art right now, there was a good chance that it might cause a conflict with the grand solar art. The slightest carelessness could cause his cultivation to go berserk or even result in his death. Of course, I don't mean the emerald ripple art that you have practiced before. What you'll be practicing is the one that I have modified, Zhong Xian said. He flicked out a jade token and quickly placed his finger on it lightly. A sliver of his consciousness slipped into the jade token and imprinted the modified emerald ripple art on it. Following which, he passed the jade token to Elder Feng. Accepting the jade token, Elder Feng took a look at the contents of the jade token, and unwittingly, his zhenqi actually began to flow in accordance to the circulation pathway written on it. A moment later, he spurted out 3 mouthfuls of black blood. In an instant, his body felt much lighter and more relaxed than before. The bottlenecks that had limited him before had loosened, and his arm was not as stiff. So fast. Elder Feng clenched his fists tightly as he looked at the young man in front of him with a mixture of respect and horror in his eyes. He knew his own physical condition well. Just by cultivating the cultivation technique that the other party had given him for a moment, his condition had improved significantly. He knew that as long as he cultivated strictly in accordance to it, he would be able to make a full recovery very soon. A problem that had troubled him for 81 years and had consumed innumerable treasures from the sect, had actually been resolved with just a quick glance from the young man. Such a thing was really unthinkable. Elder Feng was not the only one who was surprised by the situation. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao was equally dumbstruck as well. He had been worried that Liu Yang would be too young to win the support of the sect, but given his capability, it seemed like his worries were needless. The young man's talents didn't just stop at his ability to learn battle techniques swiftly. The young man's grasp of the way of the medicine had also reached an unthinkable level, such that he could think of no one who could compete with him. All right. As long as you follow that cultivation technique properly, you should be able to recover from your affliction within half a year. In fact, you might even be able to raise your cultivation to new heights, Zhong Xian said with a wave of his hand. This matter was a walk in the park for him, so he did not mind offering the other party his assistance. Elder Feng had been using a battle technique all this time in order to induce the movement of the boat, so he had been able to compile a book regarding him in the Library of Heaven's Path to see through all the afflictions affecting him. With all the secret manuals that he had browsed through recently, it was not too hard for him to come up with an appropriate solution. Thank you, Elder Liu. Elder Feng bowed deeply. Zhong Xian knew that he had already won Elder Feng over, so there was no need to harp on about the matter. Thus, he pointed to the area ahead and asked, "The formation and seal right ahead were left by you, right?" While the 3 of them were chatting, the boat had already traveled yet another 200 li forward. They had arrived in a region where the ocean surface looked no different from that of a mirror. This area is known as the Sea of Little Mirror. The formation and seal I have left behind are indeed hidden here, Elder Feng said with a nod of his head. There were unique ores in the Sea of Little Mirror that lured a certain life form to gather in huge clusters within the region, thus creating a reflective surface on the surface of the ocean. The formation and seal that he had set up were so discreet that not even semi-divinity realm experts would be able to notice them easily. How did the young man notice them? Just as Elder Feng was pondering over this question, the young man suddenly continued speaking. The double ripples water formation is indeed able to camouflage itself in water, making it hard for anyone to notice it. Its might is also one to behold. However, it's still a little too weak to trap a semi-divinity realm beast. More importantly, the opponent is a life form whose native habitat is the water. It will be extremely sensitive to the flow of water currents. As soon as the opponent notices the presence of the formation, it will be able to make use of the ripples to propel it away. You are able to see through my formation? Elder Feng was stunned. Chapter 2035 The Wonders of the Sea of Little Mirror. The double ripples water formation used specially forged water droplets as formation flags. It would flow along with the water current, such that even the spiritual perception of a semi-divinity realm expert would not be able to perceive its presence. On the other hand, this young man was able to see through it as soon as he arrived in the area, and he could even point out the flaws in the formation. His eye of discernment was truly terrifying. Elder Liu, the semi-divinity realm beast that we are aiming for is a blackback tortoise. It's known for its humble speed. The double ripples water formation is ideal to trap the opponent, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao interjected. Since they were aiming to take down a semi-divinity realm beast, it was only normal that they would do their homework in advance. They had considered the possibility of the beast making use of the ripples to flee, but since their target was a blackback tortoise, they decided to go ahead with it anyway. Due to the bulky body of the blackback tortoise, it was unable to utilize the flow of water to accelerate its speed. As long as they controlled the ripples well enough, they would be able to form a tight barrier to trap the blackback tortoise. The blackback tortoise is skilled in defense but not speed. Considering its massive physique, it's indeed not a bad idea to use the double ripples water formation against it. However, we should not forget our environment here. We are currently in the Sea of Little Mirror, and there's a brilliant moon hanging above us, Zhongxian said. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao and Elder Feng were slightly flabbergasted by Zhongxian's words. They had no idea what the latter was getting at. Aren't we talking about the formation and the blackback tortoise? What does this have to do with the Sea of Little Mirror and the brilliant moon above? Have you ever considered the possibility that the blackback tortoise isn't just keeping its distance out of wariness? Don't you think that it's possible that it has already noticed the formation you have set up, and it's biding its time for the opportune moment to strike? Zhongxian asked. He had already harbored his doubts when Elder Feng said that the beast was extremely wary. Semi-divinity realm beasts were already the most powerful existence in the Sea of Exiled Stars. Was there a reason for it to be so wary when there were only so few things in the world that could hurt it? If it was just a moment of hesitation, it might still have been wariness, but to stay away for so many days, it was clear that there was more than met the eye. After checking the formation and location in person, he finally came to a realization. What do you mean by that? Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao asked in intrigue. He was unable to figure out how all of that came together. You should know why the Sea of Little Mirror is reminiscent of a mirror. Due to the unique ores in the region, a certain lifeform known as the silverleaf mayfly gathers within the water in huge clusters, Zhongxian said. The other two nodded in agreement. They had heard of the silverleaf mayfly before. It was a creature so small that it appeared no different from a speck of dust. Nevertheless, through sheer numbers, it was able to create a silver reflective surface on the Sea of Little Mirror. These silverleaf mayflies prey not on coral nor animal but the energy within a certain kind of ore. This entire area is filled with these ores, which keeps the silverleaf mayflies clustered in this area, thus producing this mystical sight, Zhongxian said. Elder Feng nodded in agreement. He had been there for quite some time, and he had investigated the area thoroughly, so he knew that what Zhongxian was saying was true. These silverleaf mayflies are not usually much of a threat, but if the ores they feed on start tremoring, can you imagine what will happen? Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao pondered for a moment before replying. If they feel like their livelihood has been threatened, they will surely fall into a pandemonium. Most of them will probably rush over in an attempt to salvage the situation. There were no beasts that would not be worried if their source of food was being threatened. Indeed, they would be stirred into motion in the hope of salvaging the situation. With so many silverleaf mayflies moving at once, are you certain that your double ripples water formation would still be useful? Zhongxian asked. Elder Feng fell into deep thought as he quickly reanalyzed the situation. The silverleaf mayflies were the size of a speck of dust, so if it was just a couple of them moving around, it would not cause too much trouble. However, if all of them, covering the entire Sea of Little Mirror, were to begin moving at the same time, even the strongest of formations would collapse under a stampede of such scale. Putting aside capturing the blackback tortoise, they might even be trapped there as well, but those ores have been buried deep in the seabed for many years, and they have never moved before. It doesn't seem likely that anything peculiar will happen all of a sudden. Furthermore, what does this have to do with the full moon? Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao asked. If something was going to happen to the ores, it would have happened long ago. How unlucky would they have to be for a mishap to occur while they were here? It's true that nothing has happened so far, but it doesn't mean that nothing will happen in the future, Zhongxian said. Furthermore, if what I'm thinking of occurs, you will be the trigger of it all. We will be the trigger. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao and Elder Feng found themselves getting more and more confused by what Zhongxian was getting at. How in the world are we the trigger? We haven't done anything here that would warrant something like that. The blackback tortoise fancies shiny objects. If I'm not mistaken, what you have planted in the depths of the ocean to bait it is some kind of invaluable diamond crystal, right? Zhongxian said. I'm guessing that the diamond crystal you used emanates a light that is even brighter than that of the night illumination pearls underwater, such that it will be perfectly visible even 10,000 li away. Well, you probably need at least that much if you wish to draw the attention of the blackback tortoise. However, have you considered where the energy for the light emanated by the diamond crystal comes from? Even night illumination pearls have to absorb the light from the sun in order to shine. Considering how bright the diamond crystal is, where does its energy come from then? Even if it has energy stored within it, there is no way it will be sufficient to last for so many days. You might think that it could be from the silverleaf mayflies, but I can promise you that if you dare absorb even a sliver of energy from them, they will cluster up and devour you whole on the spot. The two of them were stumped by Zhongxian's question. To be honest, they had thought that they absorbed the energy from the silverleaf mayflies, but it seemed like that was not the case. It was indeed a question worth considering. Given how all light was reflected off the surface of the sea, everything beneath the surface was bound to be pitch black. And if it was not sunlight that was fueling it, what else could be? Seeing that he had managed to get them thinking, Zhongxian continued. I'll give you the answer. The diamond crystal is drawing energy from the ores. During the night of the full moon, the silverleaf mayflies are in their weakest state, and they will frenziedly devour energy from the ores in order to replenish their energy. However, right now, the diamond crystal is competing with them for energy as well. The amount of energy that can be absorbed from the ores at any particular moment is limited, so such a situation could easily result in a huge problem. In the best possible scenario, there will just be tremors underwater, causing the waters to become choppy. In the worst-case scenario, a massive whirlpool will occur in the Sea of Little Mirror, devouring everything in the area. Hearing those words, Elder Feng pondered for a moment before asking, if that happens, my formation will indeed lose its prowess. However, won't the blackback tortoise be affected by the commotion and be unable to escape as well? It was true that a stampede from the silverleaf mayflies spelled trouble for his formation, but such a situation would not be advantageous to the blackback tortoise either. Given so, why would it wait till the night of a full moon in order to strike? Unable to escape. Zhongxian burst into laughter. You are underestimating the semi-divinity realm blackback tortoise. It's a being that boasts unparalleled defense. Even during the stampede of the silverleaf mayflies, by its sheer weight, it will still be able to push its way through and devour your diamond crystals within 3 breaths. It won't be able to assimilate those high-tiered diamond crystals swiftly though, which means that the silverleaf mayflies will still be able to sense the power from the ores coming from the blackback tortoise. In other words, it will then become the culprit that was vying against the silverleaf mayflies for energy. Given so, how do you think those silverleaf mayflies will react? The silverleaf mayflies will attack the blackback tortoise, right? Barely after saying those words, Elder Feng suddenly narrowed his eyes as he finally understood what was going on. What you mean is that the blackback tortoise has already noticed my plans, and it's intentionally waiting till the night of the full moon not just to destroy my formation and acquire the diamond crystal but to make use of this opportunity to devour the silverleaf mayflies as well. And perhaps, even me too? The silverleaf mayflies might be able to hinder the movements of the blackback tortoise, but there was no way that they would be able to pose a threat to it. In the long term, they would become nothing more than prey to it. At the same time, they would be trapped amid the stampede of the silverleaf mayflies, unable to escape. Under such circumstances, there was a good chance that they might turn from predators to prey. If so, that would really be terrifying. All along, they had thought that they were in control of the situation, But who could have known that they had already unwittingly fallen into the other party's trap? Your strength isn't enough to catch its eye. If it really wanted to go for you, it would have long made its move. Most likely, its target is Pavilion Master Kuei, Zhong Xian said. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao was stunned. If I wasn't here, you would probably be underwater by now, camping in the vicinity of the Double Ripples water formation, waiting for the blackback tortoise to fall for the trap, right? Zhong Xian said with a smile. If the silverleaf mayflies rushed over to you at that instant, you would surely be pushed to a coma. After all, you don't possess the same defensive capabilities as the blackback tortoise. It wouldn't take long for them to successfully seal your acupoints, weakening you for a fair amount of time. Hearing those words, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao's body stiffened. He knew that what the young man said was true. If the young man was not there, he would have dived into the water with Elder Feng in preparation for the moment that the blackback tortoise fell into their trap. If the silverleaf mayflies stampeded at that moment, with their dust-like physique and sheer numbers, it would be difficult for him to defend against them all at once. It would not take long for them to seal his acupoints, preventing him from driving his zhenqi in the short term. After all, he was not so fortunate as to possess the impermeable shell of the blackback tortoise. Of course, that much would not be able to defeat a semi-divinity realm expert like him. It was only a matter of time before he freed himself from the restraints of the silverleaf mayflies. However, if the semi-divinity realm beast made use of his moment of weakness to assault him, he shuddered thinking of the consequences. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao swiftly formed a simulation in his head based on the situation that Zhong Xian had predicted, and slowly, he could feel his body turning colder and colder. Even by positive estimates, the chances of him being killed by the blackback tortoise were at least 80%. Such situations could not possibly happen by coincidence, especially when semi-divinity realm experts were involved. Most likely, it was just as Zhong Xian had said. While they were laying a trap for the blackback tortoise, the latter was doing the same. It seemed like they had really been outwitted. There was no greater ingenuity than a scheme that caused one's target to leap into it willingly. If they had not noticed it, the ones who were hunted would have been them. Even if they managed to get away using all sorts of trump cards, they would have been mortally wounded. Just thinking about the possibilities sent shivers down his spine. After a long moment of silence, Elder Feng asked, "Elder Liu, what should we do?" At this moment, he had unconsciously placed Elder Liu on a higher pedestal than even Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao himself. Somehow, his first reaction had become to turn to Elder Liu for advice. "Do you have any more of the water droplet formation flags that you used to set up the Double Ripples water formation?" Zhong Xian asked. "I do," Elder Feng replied. With a flick of his wrist, he took out several dozen water droplets. Even though they looked the same as ordinary water droplets, they were indeed formation flags. Due to their unique nature, they were able to meld into the water. Nevertheless, as long as they were in position, one would be able to activate those formation flags to bring out the power of a formation anytime. Good. Since the blackback tortoise believes that it has us in its grasp, we'll just have to alter the formation accordingly to turn the tables, Zhong Xian said. Go. With a wave of his hand, he scattered all the water droplets in Elder Feng's hand into the water. Hula. The next moment, the dozens of water droplets vanished beneath the silvery surface of the Sea of Little Mirror. Seeing how the young man shot out all the water droplets at once without any hesitation, Elder Feng was stunned yet again. This was the first time that he had seen anyone setting up a formation like that. Was this not being a little too haphazard? It's fine now. Let's head down to wait for the blackback tortoise, Zhong Xian said with a light chuckle. Just like that. Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao still felt a little insecure. Yes. We'll move according to the former plan and wait for the blackback tortoise to appear. Make sure not to make any other movements or else we might spark its suspicion, Zhong Xian said. Looking at the confident look on Zhong Xian's face, Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao hesitated for a moment before nodding slightly. We'll move according to Elder Liu's plan. Yes, Pavilion Master Kuei. Elder Feng nodded. They quickly drove the boat toward the center of the Sea of Little Mirror. We have arrived, Elder Feng said. With a grasp of his hand, a small passageway appeared on the surface of the water. He stowed the boat away before diving in. Zhongxian and Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao followed closely behind him, venturing into the depths of the dark sea. Chapter 2036 The Cunning Blackback Tortoise. The water on the surface was glistening and slightly choppy, reminiscent of a living being. In contrast, the seabed was utterly quiet, devoid of any underwater currents at all. It felt as quiet as a silent chamber. There was a brilliant glow right beneath them coming from the diamond crystal they had planted beforehand, so they simply had to head in the direction of the light. The way in which Elder Feng had set up everything was extremely meticulous. He had made it seem as if the diamond crystal was a natural gemstone that lived in the Earth's vein, and the only reason it had exposed itself was due to a crack in the Earth's vein. If one had not known that it was all artificially set up, one might have been fooled into thinking that it was the work of nature, thus losing one's wariness around it. "We'll hide here." They stopped at an area not too far away from the diamond crystal. With a wave of his hand, Elder Feng produced a mini whirlpool and dived into it. Zhongxian and Pavilion Master Kuei Xiao followed closely behind him. As soon as they entered, the whirlpool vanished, and it looked as if the three had never been there. This is a spatial formation? It was no wonder Elder Feng was so confident that the blackback tortoise had not noticed them. It turned out that he had prepared a spatial formation in advance. As long as one could not find the crux of the formation to destroy the structure of the spatial formation, it would indeed be extremely difficult to notice them. But while outsiders were unable to sense their presence, they were able to see what was happening outside clearly with their eyes. Looking at the dazzling glow emanated by the crystal, Zhongxian could not help but exclaim, "It must have been hard for you to find that diamond crystal." This diamond could not be melted down to forge weapons, but there was no doubt that it was one of the most beautiful objects across the entire azure. Just this single one would cost an astronomical price, likely surpassing even the value of a heavenly high immortal tier artifact. What made it even more difficult to acquire was that it was incredibly rare. Throughout the history of the Forsaken Continent, such crystals had only appeared thrice, and even the largest of them was only the size of a longan. However, the one before him was even larger than a fist. With this, its value was truly inestimable. The seven-star pavilion had really gone all out to bait the blackback tortoise. In order to acquire this diamond crystal, we had to mobilize over 10,000 people and expend a lot of resources. Pavilion Master Kuei nodded in response. He had been the one to plan this operation from the start to the end. It was true that the cost was frightening, but it would all be worth it if they could capture a semi-divinity realm beast. Putting aside its blood essence and beast core, even its skin and bones could be used to forge precious treasures. If they auctioned the completed products in the seven-star pavilion, they would surely be able to recoup their losses and even earn 10 times the amount they had invested. 2 months ago, the only semi-divinity realm beasts that the entire Forsaken Continent had seen were all from the Hall of Gods. They had never been spotted anywhere else before, so no one had successfully hunted one. As such, if they could become the first ones to do so, even if it was just out of the novelty factor, they would definitely be able to make a killing by selling its products. Furthermore, the beast core and blood essence of a semi-divinity realm beast were very likely to be able to raise one's cultivation. In this world where strength reigned mighty, cultivators were willing to pay any price as long as they could advance their cultivation. As such, the seven-star pavilion had started making preparations as soon as they caught wind of the news that semi-divinity realm beasts had started appearing in the ocean of exiled stars. Regardless of whether Zhongxian had appeared or not, they would still have gone on with the hunt. Zhongxian nodded in agreement. Most probably, only the unbelievably rich seven-star pavilion could afford to invest so many resources into an operation like this. The rest of the 6 sects would risk emptying out their treasuries if they tried it. Of course, the Ethereal Hall likely had the resources to pull off something like that as well, but it was hard to say for sure given how elusive it was. It had branches in all second-tier cities and above, but the location of its headquarters and its actual military might remain a mystery. Hong Long Long. While they were chatting with one another, the full moon rose into the sky. A jolt abruptly shook the surface of the sea, as if an earthquake had happened. The water began to billow, causing the mirror-like surface to distort continuously and create bizarre light patterns all around. In this moment, it felt as if all the stars had dived into the sea to frolic around. "It's beginning," Zhong Xian muttered softly. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao and Elder Feng nodded in agreement. Just as Zhong Xian had said, something was happening in the Sea of Little Mirror as a result of the rise of the full moon. The silverback mayflies were moving around in a panic, causing the choppy waters to turn turbulent. If they had continued using the double ripples water formation, it would have been rendered ineffective by now. "It's coming," Elder Feng's voice sounded. Raising their heads, the crowd saw a massive sea tortoise slowly swimming over from afar. This sea tortoise was humongous in terms of physique. Just its width was already more than 100 meters long. It looked like a massive submarine diving through the water, pushing aside the silverback mayfly horde that stood in its way with its sheer weight. "It has indeed reached the semi-divinity realm," Zhong Xian murmured. The movements of this sea tortoise were heavy and slow, but in terms of strength, it was on par with Pavilion Master Kue Xiao. If they clashed head-on with one another, even the three of them combined were unlikely to be a match for it. Zhong Xian's cultivation had already reached the high immortal realm, and he was confident that he was invincible within this realm. However, the gap between a high immortal and a semi-divinity was simply too great. On any other occasion, he would have already fled as far as possible in the face of an expert of such caliber. He would not have dared to confront it directly. "Prepare to activate the formation," Pavilion Master Kue Xiao said grimly as he drove his energy to its limits. He was ready to make a move alongside the formation to deal this massive fellow a lethal blow. It was impossible to tame a beast in such a cultivation realm. Instead of wasting his effort, he would rather strike it down directly. "Something's not right." Zhong Xian's eyebrows shot up. "What's not right?" The other two turned their heads. The blackback tortoise was already extremely close to them. If they did not activate the formation right now, it was highly likely that the blackback tortoise would simply rush over and devour the diamond crystal. Once it fled the area of effect of the formation, all their preparations would be rendered useless. The blackback tortoise is after the diamond crystal, and the situation it was intending for has come to be. Shouldn't it rush right over to snatch the diamond crystal? Why is it still loitering around the area, as if it's waiting for something? "Don't you think that it's bizarre?" Zhong Xian asked. Well, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao and Elder Feng thought about it once more, and indeed, something was a little weird. The massive blackback tortoise was in a good position to devour the diamond crystal whole right away, but instead of doing so, it was circling around the area as if it had not noticed it at all. Its plan was to snatch the diamond crystal and kill Elder Feng and Pavilion Master Kue Xiao by capitalizing on the stampede of the silverback mayflies, and the opportunity to do so was right in front of it. Yet, it was refusing to make a move. Hihi, no wonder it has been heading in this direction all this while. It turns out that it has noticed this thing. As the saying goes, a man will die for his greed, and a bird will die for food. Beasts are ultimately no more than beasts. To lose its life over a mere diamond. TSK. It would be rude for me not to make a move when such a massive prey is right before me. While the three were trying to figure out the reason behind this anomaly, a voice suddenly sounded from above. Following which, a brilliant ray of light shone down from the surface. A figure had dived into the water, parting the silvery mirror on the surface to allow some light in momentarily. A semi-divinity realm expert? Zhong Xian narrowed his eyes. The figure that had entered the water was actually a semi-divinity realm expert as well, just like Pavilion Master Kue Xiao and the blackback tortoise. That would explain why the latter had kept circling around the area instead of devouring the diamond crystal right away. It seemed like it was baiting this fellow into making a move. "It's the head of the Black Mirror Citadel, by Xiansheng." Pavilion Master Kue Xiao was stunned for a moment before sending a telepathic message to Zhong Xian to explain the situation. Zhong Xian assessed the newcomer as he muttered, "The head of the Black Mirror Citadel?" Of the 6 sects, Black Mirror Citadel was known for its expertise in crafting weapons. The Tongshang sword was said to be the work of one of the blacksmiths of the Black Mirror Citadel. Who would have thought that he would meet their head over here? Why is he here? Elder Feng was taken aback by the current situation. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao shook his head and said, "Since we were able to acquire the intelligence that semi-divinity realm beasts have started appearing in this region, it isn't too surprising for the others to be able to do so." There was no one who did not know how valuable semi-divinity realm beasts were. Just like how the 7-star pavilion wanted to hunt one down, the same went for the other powers. "Do we activate the formation?" Elder Feng asked with a livid expression. With the abrupt appearance of Bai Shensheng, all their previous plans had been messed up. "Hold on for the time being." Zhongxian raised his hand. "I have modified the double ripples water formation to make it even more stable, such that it will be able to stand its ground even amid the stampede of the silverback mayflies. However, in return, it has become much more difficult to activate it, such that I'm the only one here who is able to do it. For now, we should keep it as our trump card." Trump card? Previously, I thought that the blackback tortoise was making use of the full moon to lure Pavilion Master Kue Xiao in. However, now that I think about it, such a plan is infeasible. There's no way it would have known for sure that Pavilion Master Kue Xiao would be coming. On the other hand, Citadel Lord Bai Shensheng has been following him for quite some time. Most likely, its target has been him all along, Zhongxian remarked with a smile. He had already heard the news that the Azure Bridge was descending in advance on his way here. Even if the blackback tortoise knew of the news and predicted that Pavilion Master Kue Xiao would make his way here, there was no guarantee that the latter would arrive prior to the full moon. If so, it would have been meaningless for it to bide its time here. After all, its plans would unravel as soon as the night of the full moon arrived. In other words, the one whom the blackback tortoise was baiting had never been Pavilion Master Kue Xiao. With the appearance of Citadel Lord Bai, the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Most likely, the blackback tortoise had noticed both the diamond crystal and Citadel Lord Bai Shensheng, so it had intentionally lured the latter here in order to make use of the stampede of the silverback mayflies to kill him. Hong Long. While they were talking, the tremors intensified. As the diamond crystal absorbed more and more energy from the ores, the silverback mayflies moved in greater fluster. All those movements caused cracks to appear on the seabed. Paying no heed to Citadel Lord Bai Shensheng, the blackback tortoise looked around it and realized that the double ripples water formation still had not been dispelled. A hint of worry appeared in its eyes as it realized that things were not going exactly to its plan. However, it knew that it could not afford to wait any longer. Thus, it dived forward with its massive body. Who? As if it had teleported, it arrived right before the diamond crystal in an instant and devoured it whole. "Is this what you mean by not fast?" Zhongxian's lips twitched in horror. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao had told him that this humongous sea tortoise was only known for its defensive prowess, but its speed was severely lacking. He had taken that information for granted, thinking that it made perfect sense. Who could have known that such a heavy creature would be capable of charging at such speed? Its speed was faster than him even when he used all his strength. If they really fought one another, a ram from the blackback tortoise at that speed might have just taken him down. With an awkward look on his face, Pavilion Master Kue Xiao turned his gaze toward Elder Feng. It didn't move this quickly the last time I met it. It traveled at a speed roughly the same as mine, Elder Feng hurriedly explained. Naturally, he had investigated what the blackback tortoise was capable of prior to setting up a trap for it. In fact, the entire trap had been built in order to capitalize on the slow speed of the blackback tortoise. They did not expect it to have been concealing its true strength the whole time. "It's much smarter than I thought," Zhongxian said with a bitter smile. It actually knew how to hide its true abilities and bide its time in order to lure others into a deadly trap. While this blackback tortoise might have appeared to be a little dull, it was far more cunning than it appeared. Indeed, those who were able to reach the semi-divinity realm really should not be underestimated. "What should we do now?" Pavilion Master Kue Xiao asked. "Since the blackback tortoise has already made its move, we should let the two of them fight one another and be the ones to reap the rewards of their effort. Chapter 2037. It's the fisherman who profits from the fight between two fish. Based on his previous plan, once the blackback tortoise walked into their ambush, they would immediately activate the formation, and with the strength of the silverback mayflies and pavilion master Kue Xiao, they would swiftly take it down. In fact, even capturing it alive would not have been out of the question. The appearance of Citadel Lord Bai Shensheng was outside their expectations, but it did not affect them too much. Instead, it would just make things simpler for them. They could reap the reward once the two of them tired one another out. While they were chatting with one another, the blackback tortoise swallowed the diamond crystal whole, but the diamond crystal continued to absorb the energy from the oars non-stop. This provoked the silverback mayflies into action. They immediately began flocking over, causing the surrounding water to billow deafeningly. The blackback tortoise was not the only one who came under their attack. Citadel Lord Bai Shensheng also suddenly found himself swarmed by innumerable silverback mayflies, forcing him to release his zhenqi and form a protective barrier around himself. Caught off guard by this abrupt situation, Citadel Lord Bai Shensheng took a look around him before looking downward. Friends hiding below, let's take down this blackback tortoise together. Given its size, there's more than enough to go around. His voice caused the surrounding water to billow, and it arrived in the ears of Zhong Xian and the others clearly. He's found us. Elder Foam was stunned. That's not necessarily the case. Since the blackback tortoise was able to notice that there's something amiss about the diamond crystal, as a semi-divinity realm expert, Citadel Lord Bai might have noticed something as well. Most likely, he's trying to coax us out to deal with the blackback tortoise alongside him. It's fine, just ignore him, Zhong Xian replied with a shake of his head. Given how conspicuous the diamond crystal was, the chances were that someone would have dug it out by now. It was too much of coincidence for it to appear there at such a moment, especially since the blackback tortoise was attracted to shiny things. With such evidence, it was not difficult for Bai Shensheng to figure out that someone else had laid a trap there to ambush the blackback tortoise. It was just that he did not know whom the other party was and what power they belonged to. Boom! The blackback tortoise saw that the formation did not activate even after the shout, but it was extremely certain that there was someone hiding there. The fact that those that were hiding there did not make a move despite an invitation from a semi-divinity realm expert likely meant that they were confident of dealing with it. With this, it knew that if it really fought against this first semi-divinity realm expert and exhaust itself, there was a good chance that it might lose its life. Thus, with a furious roar, it rammed its body right toward Bai Shensheng. This time, it moved with even greater speed. Before one could even blink, its massive body had materialized right in front of Bai Shensheng. Its humongous physique left one feeling as if a comet was crashing right toward one. This ram wielded the ability to destroy even a heavenly high immortal in an instant. Let's see who is stronger. Bai Shensheng seemed to have expected this move from the blackback tortoise, and he burst into laughter. He swiftly conjured a massive shield right before him. As soon as the shield appeared in the water, it immediately lengthened itself until it was over several hundred meters in width and height, the same size as the blackback tortoise. As the two collided with one another, a resounding reverberation reminiscent of the chime of a bell echoed loudly in the air. The silverback mayflies in the surroundings were immediately jolted into powder. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao's eyes narrowed. That shield is a semi-divinity realm artifact. He had known Bai Shensheng for many years, and they were extremely familiar with one another. They had fought several times before, and they were equally matched in terms of fighting prowess. When did the other party gain a semi-divinity realm artifact like that? With such an artifact in hand, there was no way that Pavilion Master Kue Xiao would stand a chance against him anymore. It was no wonder he dared to challenge the blackback tortoise without any preparation. With just this artifact in hand and his superior cultivation, he was more than capable of standing his ground against it. Lock. After blocking the blackback tortoise's ram, Bai Shensheng laughed once more, and he rotated the shield in his hand. Hula. It immediately scattered into something reminiscent of a fishnet. Innumerable metal chains darted forth and wrapped themselves around the blackback tortoise, locking it firmly in place. It turned out that this semi-divinity realm artifact was a weapon with flexible form. This is bad. At this rate, the blackback tortoise will really be his. Elder Feng exclaimed in panic. The 7-star pavilion had prepared nearly an entire month for this, and the blackback tortoise was already well within their reach. They never would have thought that someone else would snatch their prey at a crucial moment like this. There's no need to panic. If it was that easy to capture the blackback tortoise, it would already be dead by now, Zhongxian consoled with a smile. Right after he had said those words, the blackback tortoise suddenly opened its mouth, and the diamond crystal floated out of its body. The appearance of the diamond crystal immediately illuminated the dim surroundings, but this time, it seemed to shine with even greater splendor than before. Hong long long long. At the same time, the tremors in the surroundings became more intense. Frenzied currents tore through the water, stirring up massive waves on the seabed. Somehow, the blackback tortoise was increasing the rate at which the diamond crystal was absorbing energy from the ore. Hoo. As the tremors grew even more violent, the silverback mayflies flew into even greater frenzy. They immediately charged over with utmost desperation, swarming the blackback tortoise and the diamond crystal in an instant. Damn! Seeing this, Bai Xuansheng's face turned livid. Scram, you pests! He waved his hand furiously to fend off the silverback mayflies as he tried to pull the steel chains that he had wrapped around the blackback tortoise. However, it felt as if he had lost the connection with his semi-divinity realm artifact, leaving him unable to control it. Voila! Just like that, his semi-divinity artifact lost its effectiveness and fell through the body of the blackback tortoise and collapsed at the bottom of the ocean. Elder Liu, what's going on? Even Pavilion Master Kue Xiao was unable to make sense of the situation. A semi-divinity artifact should have been extremely powerful, not to mention that it possessed its own consciousness. How could it be rendered ineffective just because it was swarmed by a large number of silverback mayflies, such that it even lost the ability to fly? Most artifacts are forged with metal, and that chain he is holding is no exception. While silverback mayflies are living beings, they do have an extremely high level of metal content in their bodies. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to form such a bright reflective surface on the water, Zhongxian explained with a smile. These silverback mayflies might be small, but they emit a unique force field that they use to communicate with one another. It's due to this force field that they are able to maintain a huge, orderly formation. Any weapon, when coming into proximity with such sheer number of silverback mayflies, will find the connection between its body and its spirit obstructed due to the compounded force field, thus sealing off its strength. The blackback tortoise must have known about this, which is why it intentionally lured Citadel Lord Bai Xuansheng here. The other two were stunned. They never would have thought that the tiny silverback mayflies would be capable of neutralizing the effects of semi-divinity realm artifacts. If they headed over, would their acupoints be sealed, resulting in them losing their fighting prowess, too? It's no wonder they say that those unfamiliar with oceanic creatures should stay away from the water. It seems like there are many baffling wonders underwater that are beyond our imagination. Pavilion Master Kue Xiao shook his head and sighed. The Sea of Exiled Stars was rumored to be not beneath the City of Collapsed Space in terms of danger, but as a semi-divinity realm cultivator, he had thought that there was nothing much for him to fear anymore. After all, even the strongest beast living in the waters would only be at the semi-divinity realm, just like him. However, it seemed like strength was not enough to guarantee one's survival. If one let one's guard down, it was only a matter of time before the oceanic creatures devoured one alive. Naturally, as a beast native to the Sea of Exiled Stars, the blackback tortoise was well aware of these creatures, which was why it had chosen to lure Citadel Lord Bai Xuansheng over and lure him into using his weapon. It was all in order to cripple him. It's about time. Elder Feng, may I trouble you to release the seal on this spatial formation? Zhongxian said. Elder Feng was slightly taken aback by the abrupt request. He was just about to nod and get into action when the young man suddenly shook his head. Never mind, we won't make it in time at this rate. I'll do it myself. After saying those words, he took a step forward and stomped lightly on the ground. Wang! A huge whirlpool immediately appeared above the hidden spatial formation, forming a passageway similar to what they had come in through. Seeing such a sight, Elder Feng's jaws slackened. For a very long time, his mouth remained agape. He had put in a lot of effort to set up this formation, and even with the insignia controlling the formation in his hand, he knew that he would not be able to stop it all of a sudden. Yet, the other party had actually managed to do it with just a simple stomp of his foot. Was such a thing possible? Before Elder Fong could recover from his shock, the young man raised his hand toward the opened passageway and grasped upward. Who? The next instant, the falling semi-divinity metal chains vanished from sight. Close. After taking away the metal chain, the young man stomped his foot once more, and the spatial formation whirred back to action. Once more, the three of them vanished from the seabed. You snatched Citadel Lord Bai's semi-divinity artifact. Elder Fong and Pavilion Master Kue Xiao looked at one another in horror. Do you know just how valuable semi-divinity artifacts are? Such an act is practically no different from making enemies out of the Black Mirror Citadel. Besides, can an artifact of such a tier really be put in one's storage ring so easily? Even if you manage to store it in there, if the artifact resists, it will still be able to break out of your storage ring and flee. The two of them were not the only ones who were taken aback by the situation. Above, Bai Xiansheng was on the verge of descending into lunacy. It was one thing for him to lose control of his artifact, but he had never thought that those fellows hiding below would actually snatch his weapon without the slightest hesitation. That weapon was something that their Black Mirror Citadel had paid a heavy price and even reneged on their promise in order to acquire. For it to be stolen away just like that, he felt like he would go insane in that instant. Who the hell are you all? Give my weapon back. Bai Xiansheng roared furiously as he attempted to dash to the seabed. The spatial formation had only opened up for a brief instant, such that even with his cultivation, all he had seen was a palm reaching out. He had not been able to catch a clear glimpse of who was hidden inside. But no matter who the culprit was, whoever dared to steal his weapon would have to pay with their life. However, how could the blackback tortoise allow Bai Xiansheng to move as he wished? It had not been easy for it to strip the latter of his semi-divinity realm weapon, so there was no way it would allow the latter to have any chance of acquiring it back. Thus, without any hesitation, it dashed right toward him. This time, before striking its target, it retracted its head into its shell. Catcher! The unbelievably resilient tortoise shell crashed right into Bai Xiansheng, causing the latter's face to turn ghastly pale. That strike had shattered a number of his ribs, and a spurt of fresh blood escaped from his mouth. They were both semi-divinity realm experts, and Bai Xiansheng's cultivation was a little higher. However, he was still unable to withstand such heavy ramming from the blackback tortoise. Peng peng peng! Having managed to pull off a successful heavy strike, the blackback tortoise continued with its offense, leaving Bai Xiansheng with no choice but to continuously retreat. He desperately summoned his zhenqi to form a barrier in front of him so as to guard against the blackback tortoise's attacks. He had to block a series of consecutive attacks before he finally managed to catch a breather to regain his footing. Just when he thought that he could turn the tables around, an incredibly brilliant crystal appeared right in front of him. Its blinding light left his eyes slightly glazed. In that instant, Bai Xiansheng's soul nearly escaped from his body. He immediately tried to back away, but it was already too late. The surrounding silverback mayflies had already encircled him. His zhenqi barrier was swiftly devoured, and before he could retaliate, the silverback mayflies had already squeezed their way into his acupoints. My strength! The sealing of one's acupoints was no different from stripping a train of its engine. Bai Xiansheng was suddenly in a position where he was no longer able to drive his zhenqi properly. This abrupt loss of energy caused his body to plummet downward. Peng! Making use of this opportunity, the blackback tortoise gathered its momentum and rammed over once more. The flustered Bai Xiansheng immediately gathered all his physical might to defend against the attack. Catcher! Catcher! Without the augmentation from his zhenqi, his hands swiftly fractured inch after inch as he was blasted right into the seabed, creating a massive crater beneath. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.